Happy Hour Friday starts now. What's going on, everybody? This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Live video streaming on our YouTube channel. I'm your host, Mike Gill. Josh Henning is producing today's show. You out there? Happy Hour Friday. We've made it, my friends. Hopefully, we have a good time together. I fell asleep last night. It was 29-0 Minnesota. I woke up and realized I missed a really good fourth quarter of the game, but the Pittsburgh Steelers did not help out Philadelphia last night as the Vikings moved ahead of the Eagles in the standings. With that win last night, the Vikings go to 6-7, and they have the tiebreaker apparently over Philadelphia currently. So the Vikings win last night in what was a thrilling end of the game. I mean, really, Pittsburgh comes back in that game last night and gave it everything they could in the fourth quarter. It would have been nice if they got off the plane and played like that earlier in the game. That would have been probably preferable. But, hey, one quarter of good football, I guess, is better than anything, than none, right? Because it looked pretty bad for the Steelers there early last night, who I would have to imagine the Steelers are about done. They got a pretty tough schedule coming up, and that game last night, they really needed that game to kind of stay in the AFC wildcard race. I mean, everybody's still there, but, man, they just look like a team that did not have the answers to the questions. Everybody else had the answers to the questions on the test except for them, and it was like, holy mackerel. How many times did Ben Roethlisberger just get clean shots last night, straight up the middle? It was one after the other. There was a lot going on last night. If you're watching the Sixers game, I said last night, I don't know if you remember me saying this because normally when I'm right on the money, nobody remembers. But I did say when we talked to Keith Smith yesterday that I thought the Sixers were probably going to get beat up pretty good last night. You know, when you go on a long road trip, like those long West Coast trips, that first game back from the long road trip, bet against the home team almost every single time. The Sixers had that long road trip out west. They played Minnesota, and they ended up losing to the Timberwolves in double overtime. Well, they had a 3-game roadie here this past week, and they came home on a back-to-back, played at home, and they just did not have it last night. Now, no excuse. The Jazz played back-to-back as well. But many times we've commented on this show when some people want to blame coaches, I blame players. Last night, it was just I thought the Sixers played a pretty good game. They just couldn't make a shot last night, for God's sakes. I mean, they got looks. They had some opportunities. They just could not make a shot last night. And it looked like a team, quite frankly, that was on the second half of a back-to-back. And you might say, well, so were the Jazz. Fair point. The Sixers looked more like a team that was on the back of a back-to-back than the Jazz did for whatever reason. I don't think the Sixers played a bad game. The Jazz just do what the Jazz do. They're a great shooting team. And I talked about this yesterday. I thought the key stat in the game last night, if you want to go look and say, all right, why did the Sixers lose the game last night? Well, one of the reasons is that Utah shot the lights out, and Philadelphia simply did not. I mean, the Sixers just did not shoot it well last night at all. I'm trying to find the Sixers' three-point percentage last night and Utah's three-point percentage. Might, in many people's mind, Utah shot 37%. Philadelphia shot 18%. I mean, Utah didn't shoot great, but Philadelphia was terrible. But the stat of the night is the rebounds. You got outboarded by almost 20 boards last night, 52-34. And I talked about it yesterday. The Sixers are a horrendous rebounding team, and they're really bad at the guard spot. If you look at the guard rebounding, you're just terrible in that spot, and you got beat by almost 20 boards last night. That's a big problem this team has to figure out. Gobert had 21 boards in the game last night. Embiid had 9. Drummond had 3. Drummond only played 10 minutes last night. But they just pounded you on the glass last night. Second chance points. They lead to threes. And, they got – I mean, the Sixers were kind of in the game in the third quarter. They were kind of, but I just felt, I'm like, man, Utah just keeps hitting shots, getting extra chances because they're rebounding. And the Sixers look like they're a step slow, couldn't get any of the loose balls, all that stuff. I wish, it was one of those games where I said Utah would win and probably handily, and I wish I was home to kind of bet that game because it was like a built-in bet against the Sixer night last night. So that's what happened in the game last night. No, that's not the right mic. This is the right mic. What's up?
Also, don't forget they went 0 from 3 in the second quarter. They couldn't hit a single 3 in the second quarter.
And they were still in the game.
Still in the game.
Right. They were after the second. You're right. They had a terrible second quarter. I was watching the game last night. We were out to dinner, and I had the game on the phone, and I'm like, my God, this is terrible. I mean, and then I got home. It was like third quarter, and I'm like, they're kind of, there wasn't like an arm's length. In fact, I think Doc said it last night because Joel Embiid left the game with that injury.
Right. That issue with his side or his abdominal.
Yeah, he was like up under the rib cage area or under the armpit area. And Doc said, I probably, in hindsight, should have left him out, but I thought we had one more push left in us, and they didn't. So they lose last night. I mean, look.
By the way, you can't blame Doc for trying to win the game. Like, he's trying to go out there and say, okay, we have a chance to win this. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think the Sixers played poorly. The Jazz, I mean, how many threes did they make last night? They made 15 threes, and Philadelphia made 6 threes last night. Joel said it after the game. Look, we took shots. We didn't make shots. Sometimes on some nights, I know people get frustrated when I say this. Who makes more threes in the NBA is a big indicator who wins the game. I would say 80%, 90% of the time, the team that makes their threes against the team that doesn't make their threes, they shot 40 threes, Utah. You shot 33 threes. They made 37% of them. You made 18% of them. Who do you think's winning that game?
Pretty clear to me.
And the 20 extra rebounds, it was 18, I think, 52-34. Yeah, 18. The 18 extra rebounds in the game last night didn't help the fact that you basically, by the end of the night, got blown out of the barn. So,
well, it gets back to what you said yesterday, that the Sixers are not a good rebounding team right now, and a team like the Jazz is top 5. By the way, you know who else is top 5? Golden State Warriors, who they play tomorrow night.
Yeah, it doesn't get any easier. They have tonight off, and then they're right back against the Warriors tomorrow night. You can hear that game on 97.3 ESPN. You think the Jazz are good, 18-7. You got this Warriors team coming to town with an opportunity for history. 21-4 Golden State is. And Steph Curry, not Seth Curry, has a chance. Now, this is interesting. I think there's some betting odds on this. He needs 10 threes, right?
Yes.
To break the all-time most made three-pointers in NBA history.
That's correct.
Does he do whatever he can to try to do it in a night against his brother?
Or does he let the game play out and just wait until next week when Ray Allen can be there? Because Ray Allen can't be there tomorrow night. But Ray Allen can be at the next game.
So do you want to do it in front of Ray Allen, the guy that he's trying to surpass, or do it the night you're playing your brother?
In his face.
Now, I don't have a brother, so I don't know what that brother rivalry feels like, but I kind of feel like I would want to do it with your family's there. Your brother's in the building the night that you break this record. Right. Isn't that kind of cool? You'd have to make 10 threes in a game, though.
That's hard.
It's really hard.
I mean,
he's done it before.
Sure, Steph has done it before, but I mean, he doesn't do it all the time.
No, but I saw the betting odds for this. I got to try to find them again. They were talking about this yesterday, but I think it was not the worst betting odds, by the way, to I don't know where you would find such a bet.
Probably like an offshore thing. And I know it's not, that's typically not a prop they would have available, in a regular sports book.
He's averaging 5.5 threes per game. He's the only player in NBA history to average 5 3-points made in a season, and he's done it 3 times. Look, Curry, the list of threes. Now, let me ask you, the all-time leaders in regular season three-pointers, do you think you can name the top 5?
Sure. Well, I mean, obviously, Ray Allen, we just mentioned him.
Okay.
I would probably go.
It's a very interesting list.
I would probably go.
I'm wondering. I have the top 10 in front of me. I'm wondering how deep on this list you could go.
Okay.
There's one name, two names, three names on this list, four names on this list, five names on this list that I'm pretty surprised by.
Well, I would think Reggie Miller's on the list.
Reggie Miller would be number 3. So it's Ray Allen, Steph Curry, Reggie Miller.
And then 4.
I mean, the rest of this list, I'd be shocked if you. I mean, not shocked. I'd be pretty surprised if
Steve Kerr has to be on the list.
Steve Kerr is not on the list.
Really?
Not even close.
Wow.
I mean, I don't know where he is, but I'm saying not even close.
So then Mark Price isn't on the list either.
No, the names that are on this list, I don't think of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these guys as 3-point shooters.
Okay, well then it's probably like Kevin Durant.
Not on the list.
LeBron?
No.
I'm trying to think of somebody who played long enough to compile stats.
I mean, 2 of the guys are still active.
2 of the guys are still active.
Maybe 3. I don't know if this guy's.
Oh, is Paul Pierce on the list?
Paul Pierce is on the list. He's number
Okay.
9. Paul Pierce is number 9 all time, most 3-pointers made in a season.
Wow.
I would say Paul Pierce. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer. The rest of the guys
I
are
don't think
like
of him as like a natural 3-point shooter.
exactly. Most of these guys, I don't think as 3-pointers, 3-point marksmen first.
Right. You think of them as something.
One
else.
guy I do. One
Dirk?
guy.
Is
Who?
Dirk on the list? Nowitzki.
Dirk, no.
Wow, Dirk's not even on the list.
Nope. There's one guy on this list that I think of 3-point shooter, and that's all he does. Played for the Sixers for a little while.
Lou Williams?
No.
Dana Barros?
No. Dana Barros. I mean,
well, I guessed all the obvious ones.
no, the most obvious one would be the guy who's number 5 all time.
Larry Bird?
For the Sixers.
Oh, for the Sixers.
I mean, he's got to be the most obvious guy on the list that I'm giving you. He's the only
JJ
guy
Redick?
left on. No, that's a good guess, though. I'll give you a good guess on JJ Reddick. This guy is the only player left on this list that his sole reason for being in the NBA is he made 3-pointers.
Kyle Korver.
Yes. I was just going to say, he was like a mercenary late in his career. They just kind of just kept bringing him on board Cleveland, anywhere that needed a 3-point shooter. Everybody else on this list, I wouldn't think of as a 3-point shooter first. I'll give you one more guess. All right.
Okay.
I'll give you number 4 is still active.
Number 4 is still active. Okay.
Yes. I don't think of him as a 3-point shooter, but when he does shoot that 3, it's very difficult to defend because he has a very unique move to get separation between him and the defender.
Trae Young?
No.
Well,
he's pretty
unique.
good, though. Well, there's nobody else that really does what James Harden does. He does that step back.
Right, the step back.
And shoots that 3. He's number 4 all time.
All time?
Like, when I think of James Harden, I don't think of like a 3-point sniper.
No, I think of a scorer.
Yeah, just a volume scorer. He's number 4. Kyle Korver's number 5. Number 6. When I think of number 6, I think of the dunk contest. I think of dunking.
Vince Carter?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
He is number 6.
He's that high?
Well, he played the league for 40 years.
That's true.
Number 7. Man, I can't even believe he's on this. He won a championship on a you mentioned one of his teammates.
I mentioned a lot of guys.
He won a championship on a team that was a very big surprise for winning a championship.
Jason Kidd?
Right team. Jason Kidd, the most all-time threes. I mean, him and Ben Simmons are in the same conversation.
And he was a chucker at the end of his career.
He was. He did. Well, he yes, he did.
He was just.
He was on the team with Jason. I'm pretty sure he was on this team anyway.
Oof.
Same first name, by the way.
Jason Terry?
Correct. Jason Terry,
the Jets,
is 7 all time in making threes. 7th.
He was a great 6-man, wasn't he?
I mean, yeah, that's what like when I think of Jason Terry, I just think of a guy coming off the bench and chucking. Not threes, though.
He's a microwave.
All right, number 8. This guy, your boy Brandon Scoop B. Robinson, always has scoops on this guy.
Kyrie?
No, he's not playing, but he's like 45 years old. And still, Scoop is reporting that he might have a chance to play.
Oh, Jamal Crawford.
Jamal Crawford
yes.
is number 8 all time in threes. Then Paul Pierce is 9. And the last guy, number 10, we've been talking a lot about him and possibly being traded, but he keeps saying he doesn't want to be traded.
Lillard?
Dame is the 10th most three-pointers made ever.
I mean, he is chucking them. So
Still, like, I don't think of Dame as a three. He's not a great three. Like, he doesn't have like a 40% three-point percentage.
yeah, he just has volume. He has the volume of attempts.
Yep. It's crazy when you think about it.
That list is probably the most ridiculous list ever.
It is.
Like that's the equivalent of the NFL and the passing leaders all time.
Yeah.
Because like on the passing yards leaders, you get to a point in the list, you were like, wait, what?
That is the all-time leaders in regular season three-pointers made. Ray Allen, 2973. And that puts Curry at 2963.
I feel like half of that list makes sense. The other half of it was shocking.
I said, like Reggie Miller, yes, I can see. I see Curry, obviously. Allen, 1,000%. Kyle Korver, yes. James Harden, Vince Carter. I mean, when was Vince Carter shooting threes at such a high rate?
I guess the end of his career, he became more of a spot-up guy. But, I mean, I didn't think it was that many.
Right, but, you are a spot-up guy late, but you're making like one or two. He's not like Steph Curry making 5.
Well, like him and Klay Thompson together, like they're probably together averaging like 10 makes a game.
Yeah. All right. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. So the Sixers, they lose last night. Some guesses that were coming in. A lot of people helping out with that as well. What else is going on? Well, we got the NBA Sixers. By the way, they lose last night. They're the 7th seed in the East as we finish off the second week of December here, which would put them in that play-in tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And if the playoffs were to start today, that play-in tournament would be Philadelphia against Boston. I know we have a long, long way to go. You know what teams are not in that playoff tournament?
The Knicks.
The Knicks, who were the 4 seed last year, the Raptors, Indiana, and you got to start wondering. I don't know about the Knicks so much, but Toronto, Indiana, at what point? I mean, Orlando's 5-21. My God. Detroit's 4-20. I mean, they lost 10 straight. You know what's an interesting quirk, too? Houston was the worst team of all time. They've won 7 in a row.
And they completely lost the James Harden trade.
Well, they were tanking, obviously.
Yeah, but they got nothing. All the guys they acquired in that trade, they either became free agents or they traded them.
What? Well, because they wanted to tank. They wanted to just be terrible, and now they've won 7 games in a
I'm
row.
just saying it's a horrible trade. Like, you go back and look at the team that won that trade outside the Nets getting Harden, were the Cavs getting Jared Allen.
Who was involved in that deal? I'm trying to think of some of the guys.
It was the Nets.
Because what did the Rockets actually get?
The Rockets ended up with Victor Oladipo.
Right.
Then they traded
they got him from
Oladipo to the Miami Heat for Kelly Olynyk, who became a free agent and left.
It's a money dump.
Oh, it's completely a money dump.
Right. Houston was trying to clear money, get out of here.
I just figured they were going to end up with at least one young
player.
No,
but this is a good example of, like, you have a player like James Harden, and that's the trade that you got back for him. Like, that's all you could have gotten for James Harden.
I mean, you could have gotten Karis LeVert, but you traded in the Indiana for Oladipo.
Well, there was a time there where people thought Oladipo was an all-star level player.
Yeah, was being the key word.
Yeah, well, he's had a lot of injuries.
A lot of injuries.
Yeah, that's been a little bit of a problem. So that's where they are. Sixers tomorrow night against the Warriors. And you can hear that game here on 97.3 ESPN. Mike McGarry today, Sal Palantonio, Adam Kaplan, Happy Hour Friday with the PT. Now, today, Pete Thompson and I, for Happy Hour Friday, we had a little of an assignment. If you remember Tuesday's show,
homework.
I gave Pete Thompson a little homework, and we're going to do our favorite HBO shows. And the reason I bring this up is because I don't have HBO Max, so I'm missing the season of Curb so far, and I'm hearing it's fantastic. So I need to somehow acquire HBO Max, which made me have a conversation with my buddy the other night. We're both big Curb fans, and we started to go down the rabbit hole of our favorite HBO shows. So Pete Thompson has a homework assignment, his favorite HBO shows. I'll ask you guys out there, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973, your pantheon of HBO shows.
Ooh, I like that word, pantheon.
Give me your pantheon, maybe your 4 favorite HBO shows. Now, I have some quirky ones.
Okay.
There's also a book out. This came up from the conversation I had with my roommate from college came from a podcast I was listening to. James Andrew Miller wrote the HBO book. It's called Tinderbox.
Okay. Yeah, he also wrote the ESPN book.
He did. And he just wrote the HBO book about the history of HBO, how it started, real sports, all the different comedy specials, how they really transformed a lot of, pay television.
Right. They transformed all of television.
Yeah, because you would go on like the Tonight Show and do a 3-minute comedy segment,
right?
And then HBO would say, "Well, what if we gave you an hour?"
Right.
So that's where they got these big HBO comedy shows. They did the boxing, they did all the real sports,
right? And then in the 90s and 2000s, they changed how people did television shows because the success of those shows made everyone else be like, "Well, we want to make an HBO type show."
He wrote about the Sopranos and how it didn't test very well, and they didn't know if they were even going to carry it. Kind of an interesting story. I haven't read the book yet, but I listened to the podcast.
Will you read the book?
Yeah, I think.
Or will you Audible it?
I'd probably Audible it because I don't have the attention span to read, but I listen to a lot of things. It's like 1,200 pages.
Oh wow,
something like that. It might even be more. It's a big book.
What, do you have a long drive coming up anytime soon?
Not really.
Yeah. I was gonna say you can just put it on in the car and just be like, "Let's go."
So yeah, the HBO book, it's called Tinderbox.
Tinderbox.
James Andrew Miller. So if you guys out there listening, give me your pantheon of favorite HBO shows. Yeah, give me like 3, 4, 5. And then we'll try to tally them up. And then Pete and I today, we're going to do a double segment, Happy Hour Friday, and have a lot of fun with that on a kind of a bye week. No Eagles this week. So we figure we'll have a little
10
fun.
o'clock.
Flyers are 10 o'clock. No, the Flyers are still playing, huh?
You got Rough and Rowdy tonight. I know you do.
Yeah, I got a bunch of people asking me if I'm going to get the Rough and Rowdy. I texted with Jeff Nadeau today. You know what's funny? Because he told me what song he's walking out to.
Right.
And I'm sitting at lunch. And in the lunch I'm sitting at, on the wall was a picture of the guy who sings the song that he's walking out to.
No way.
How about it?
Really?
I said, there's an omen for you.
I mean, that's a crazy omen.
Yeah. I got some HBO shows coming in already on the text board. 609-403-0973. If you're listening on the free mobile app, you can message me through the app. Tell us what are your pantheon of favorite HBO shows. Happy Hour Friday. We like to keep it a little light, especially on the Eagles bye week. All right, let's have some fun. Eagles bye week is here. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Brian and Epseek and Curb is on HBO. You can watch it on demand. Well, I don't have HBO.
Yeah, that's the whole point of this. Now, you could get it as an add-on to Xfinity, or you could pay the separate fee for it.
I know.
I've had
it's
HBO.
Like $9 a month, right?
I don't remember the exact number. See, it's part of my HBO is part of my current bundle that I use to save money on my internet.
Because I don't think I definitely don't have it on YouTube TV. You know what? Because this is what happened. I have Amazon Prime, and the HBO shows used to be on Amazon Prime, but
right.
Amazon Prime no longer has.
Right, because Amazon Prime's a competitor of HBO Max.
Correct.
Now.
That's why I don't have it anymore.
Right.
Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. 229 Happy Hour Friday. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. You can download the app on your phone. You can message us through the phone. Also, if you want to text me, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. We've got a couple things on the table here. Now, Pete and I, for Happy Hour Friday, are doing our favorite HBO shows. The pantheon of your favorite HBO shows is what? Sports Bash is brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. They want to get you approved today. Matt Blatt, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. You know what else I got for you today, fellas? Now, I'm going to do my best to try to help you guys out today. We've got a lot of good people who listen in the audience today. And, I've done most of my Christmas shopping. I've, become a reformed early Christmas shopper. I used to do all my Christmas shopping on, the last possible day. And that was, something that I did. But, I now have a girlfriend. We live together. She's got a couple boys. I got to do the shopping early now. When she goes shopping, I'm going shopping. I got to get it taken care of. I got to get it done, right? So I'm just about done. But one of the things I'm going to do for the fellas out there today, I came across the best Christmas gifts for your significant other.
Oh.
Now, I looked at this list just to see, did I miss something? Is there something on this list that I'm not catching?
Did you check it twice, see who's naughty and nice?
I did. Who's buying anything from this list is my question.
Oh, no, it's one of those lists.
I mean, seriously, who comes up with this list of things? And since we are 2 Fridays away, you got to get the stuff. Because if you're going to order from someplace, you're going to go places. I realized the other day we went someplace. I mean, the shelves were barren, man.
Well, that's why for me, for example, I wanted to get a couple things for my parents. So I got it on Cyber Monday to get the discounts.
Mm-hmm.
Because I also knew that with everything going on in the world, with all the shipping delays and all the transportation issues.
I ordered a pair of sneakers, whatever, the shoes I have on my feet right now.
Mm-hmm.
Took them 2.5 weeks to get here.
Oof.
2.5 weeks.
That's rough. Yeah, so my theory was if I ordered it early, it would get in early enough. I wouldn't worry about it.
So I'm going to do that for the fellas later on in the show. All right. So if you guys are I need some couple extra things, couple extra ideas for my wife or girlfriend, I have a list of the best Christmas gifts for your significant other.
I want to hear your reaction to some of these because
you're going to want to.
I feel like some of these suggestions are either going to be really good or really horrible.
I think I looked at that list and was like, all right, maybe I'll get a last minute idea here because I'm essentially done. Mm-hmm. I looked at that list and was like, who the hell would think any of these ideas are good ideas? And what woman would say, you know what? I would be ecstatic if I opened up a present on Christmas Day and that's what it was.
Oh, my goodness.
Some HBO shows are coming in. This guy has 4 shows he sent me, 3 of which I've never seen, 2 of which I've never heard of.
Okay.
The Leftovers.
I've never heard of Leftovers.
The Wire, which I would imagine. Now, I don't have my list formulated yet because I'm asking you guys to send me some.
That's your number
just
1.
in case I forget. But I would imagine The Wire is going to be in my pantheon of the top 5.
It's your number 1.
Could be. I do like Curb a lot, though.
You do. But I feel like
The Wire is so different. I mean, that's more of a, drama.
I mean, the Wire for you is to me, for you, your 3 all-time shows are Seinfeld, The Wire, and Curb.
Wire's very good. In fact, the other night, I turn on Netflix, right? Because it must have been Tuesday night because there's nothing on.
Right.
Sixers don't play. Flyers don't play. Nothing's happening Tuesday night.
It's a good night to watch something.
We just finished watching Shameless.
Okay.
So we're done with Shameless now. Season 11 finished. So need a new show. And I went to Netflix. Can't find anything. How many offerings does Netflix have? 978,000. I couldn't find one thing that I was like, you know what? I'm going to watch this. So my girlfriend has never seen The Wire. And I was thinking, maybe I'll rewatch The Wire. I haven't watched it. The last time I watched The Wire, it was New Year's Day. New Year's Day from 5, 6, 7 years ago. We sat and watched The Wire from like noon to midnight.
All right.
Have to have one of those days again. So The Wire's probably on my list. Dream On, never heard of. Game of Thrones, I've heard of, but I have no interest in.
I have zero interest in Game of Thrones, even though I know it's one of the most watched shows of all time.
Yeah. Jeff from EHT. Number 1, Game of Thrones. Number 2, The Outsider, never heard of. Number 3, The Wire. I would imagine The Wire is going to be on most people's lists.
I feel like Wire, Game of Thrones, and Sopranos are going to be on most lists.
Mike, you said Max. Max is different from HBO. No, HBO Max is
HBO Max is the streaming platform for HBO.
Yeah, it's the.
So if you have HBO, you have HBO Max. That's how it works.
Right, exactly. So they're one and the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, I said Max, but that's because I have a television that has apps that I would download the HBO Max app, but I don't have HBO.
Right. Most televisions now have the app function on them.
Yeah. Mike, Def Comedy Jam, number 1. Number 2, Tales from the Crypt. That's from JNAC. Def Comedy Jam, that's what I was talking about.
That's legendary.
Was back in the day that, you'd get like a little 3-minute segment on the Tonight Show, and then HBO came in and said, we'll give you an hour.
Right. And that was a huge deal back then. It was revolutionary.
Wire, Game of Thrones, Sopranos, Band of Brothers, Hard Knocks, Westworld.
Westworld is one of those shows that you either love it or you hate it, I've been told.
Never saw it.
My dad watches
I kind of feel like I've given up on the Hard Knocks. Are you watching the Colts one?
I'm not watching the Colts one right now, but I did watch the Cowboys.
Mike, you're a Baltimore guy, so got to be The Wire, of course, Sopranos, and Oz. Oz was on when I was in college. My roommate in college used to watch Oz. I never seen it, though.
Yeah, Oz was never a show that I actually ever got into, honestly.
609-403-0973. Keep them coming. We'll read them throughout the day. Pete, tonight, we'll do our pantheon of the HBO shows. Mike McGarry on the other side. I would imagine McGarry's got HBO shows. Seems like a Curb guy.
Are you guessing that? Or are you
just a guess? Yeah, I have no knowledge of that.
Well, you're going to find out in a few minutes.
We will. Plus, the Sixers lose last night. Big NFC East weekend, kind of for two teams. The Giants are kind of out of it. I read at The Athletic today, they have stolen my draft idea that I've given on this show many of times. I don't know why it would work for baseball, though, but I guess there's no baseball going on, so people have to come up with ideas to write about, which is never fun. We'll do that and more. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Download the free mobile app in the Apple Store or Google Play. Sports Bash Friday. It's a happy hour Friday. The bye week is here. We've got a lot to dive into. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City stops by on Fridays as we got plenty to discuss here on a Friday edition with the bye week here. We saw a very entertaining fourth quarter last night of the Thursday night football game. I was kind of locked in on I went to the Sixers for a bit there. Then I went to the NFL game, and I actually fell asleep. I ran out of steam. It was 29-0, and I was like, this game's done. I went to sleep. I woke up. I saw that. I saw Rutgers beat the number one team in the country. Seton Hall won. It was like a magical sports night last night.
Yeah, I was locked into I started with the Sixers, and they sort of were getting rolled by the Jazz, so I flipped over and Rutgers, watched Rutgers, and then caught a little Seton Hall, and then did a little St. John's Monmouth. So it was a big college basketball.
I was watching a little St. John's Monmouth late. I was watching that.
Yeah, and it's a big college basketball weekend. I mean, I think you got Seton Hall, Rutgers on Sunday night. I think they play like 7:30, so it's kind of interesting. If you're a fan of college basketball, the New Jersey angle, last night was a big night, and it's a big weekend coming up.
Yeah, I didn't realize, I don't watch a lot of FS1, right? I didn't realize they used the NBA, NBC on NBA theme for their, because I was watching St. John's Monmouth last night, and I'm like, are they using the NBA on NBC theme? Like, is that their thing?
Yeah, go back to those triple headers on Sunday, right? The Bulls at 5:00 every Sunday in the 90s. It was a throwback right there.
Who was that? John Tesh?
Yeah, John Tesh was the guy.
Tesh wrote the Round Ball Rock.
Totally. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Round Ball Rock. So they were going to commercial last night. I'm like, are they playing the Round Ball Rock? Is that what they do on FS1 for their game? Yeah, it was St. John's Monmouth. Speaking of that Monmouth team, that MAC tournament at Boardwalk Hall is going to be really interesting. That Monmouth team is good. Iona's really good. You're going to have some good ball there.
Yeah, there's a lot of good teams in that league. Not to mention St. Peter's is a very good team. Fairfield is good. Marist is good. I got to admit, it's an entertaining brand of basketball, and I will get caught like on a Friday night tonight. I'll flip on that ESPN Plus or whatever it is, and you can watch some of those MAC games on Friday nights because they play, Friday nights and Sundays is their kind of rotation. And Monmouth with a good job last night, almost beating St. John's. And as you said, you have an Iona team that knocked off Alabama early this season. And say what you want about Rick Pitino, but he can coach. There's no doubt about that. And, he'll have Iona ready to go. So you're right. Maybe we'll finally get a good tournament. Like 2 years ago, it was COVIDed out. This past March, there weren't a lot of spectators in because of COVID. Maybe we'll get lucky this March and have what they intended it to be when they first brought it to AC.
Yeah, and speaking of tournaments, Mike, I see the Battle at the Beach is back. They're starting to be leaking out a lot of the matchups for that Battle at the Beach for 2022, which made its debut this year in Ocean City, and it looks like they're starting to kind of let some of the matchups come out.
Yeah, you're seeing some games, huge games. I think, Red Bank Catholic, I think, is playing Archbishop Wood. That's a Pennsylvania power. Ocean City's playing the Chamonix from Pennsylvania. So you're seeing those games come out. We barely finished this high school football season. We'll have on our website tomorrow, we'll have our high school football all-star teams, our press player of the year, our press coach of the year, our team of the year. That'll all be announced tomorrow on our website, and it'll be in the paper on Sunday. And it's one of those things you really want to be. You want to be a throwback guy and get the paper on the 90s because they do a nice job of it with the layout and the pictures and everything. So that'll all be coming out this week. And we barely finished this football season, and we're already planning for the next one. But there you go.
Yeah, I saw in fact, they just released another one about 10 minutes ago. So Cedar Grove is playing Salem at the Battle at the Beach on Friday, the 26th. That was just announced 10 minutes ago. So there's like 4 matchups. How many games were there last year?
I think they had, I want to say 3 a day. So I want to say around 9. I just have, flashbacks to being on the Ocean City football field at 1 a.m. that Saturday night when Holy Spirit was playing DeMatha. I don't know if I've recovered from that yet, but hopefully, we had the rain, the thunder showers delayed some action, but I think they had 9 games this year. I think they're spreading it out a little bit more this year. maybe over a couple of more days. But it was a great way to start the football season this year, and it looks like a tradition that's going to be better. There's nothing better than, you go down to Ocean City, you go for a walk or a run on the boardwalk, maybe a swim, and then you can go watch some outstanding high school football. It's just a tremendous way to spend a day.
So, okay, so we've been talking a little bit about they're extending the season to have the regional championship games that just were played, last weekend,
right?
They're going to stay on the same weekend, correct?
No, the season will, even though they're going to play the true state public school champions next year, the season will end on the same weekend, which is this past weekend. Basically, the regional games will be a week earlier, basically. And in that case, there'll be state semifinals. What they're basically doing is, in this year's regular season, you basically had an opportunity for 2 byes. Like if you played 8 or 9 games, you could have 2 byes. Next year, there's only going to be 1 bye week, basically. So that's what they'll do. The season will end on the same weekend, that sort of first weekend in December.
Okay, so the Battle at the Beach, which is in August, which is early. I mean, I don't remember games in August until recently. That's not going to be affected.
No, the season will start that same weekend. It'll follow the same time.
But are more teams going to play on that weekend now?
I would think so. I think a lot of teams. I think what you see, Mike, is you see the football teams. They really do work so hard. I know in the past they did, but these guys will start lifting weights and doing all sorts of stuff and camps and 7-on-7s and stuff. They'll start. A lot of teams will start. Some teams have started now. Most teams will start when they come back from Christmas break. They'll start. And you think about it, once school ends in June, they're almost practicing and getting ready for the season to start, even though it's not the official start of practice, basically. So I think there's such a long build up to the season that most teams want to play as soon as possible, just because, they've been practicing so much and getting ready for it so much. They want to, the old thing, we're tired of hitting each other. Let's go play a game.
All right. By the way, Mike McGarry, are you an HBO guy?
I'm a huge HBO guy. Huge.
All right. What's your pantheon of your favorite programs? This came up because I was listening to a podcast with James Andrew Miller, who wrote the HBO book.
Yeah, right. Here you go. I go Sopranos #1. Sopranos is kind of like the Babe Ruth of television shows. Without the Sopranos, we don't have any of the shows that followed. So they're the Lewis and Clark. They're the trailblazer, right? Without the Sopranos, we don't have any of these other shows that follow. So the Sopranos, is #1. 1A is probably The Wire. Unforgettable television, tremendous characters. Love The Wire. And a close second to The Wire is, I think right now, is Succession. Succession, the last episode, that scene between Kendall Roy and the dad, Brian Cox, last weekend, tremendous. Is Kendall Roy dead? I'm on the edge of my seat here wondering what's going on. The Succession is #2. And then you put Curb Your Enthusiasm off in its own category. They're the kind of Bo Jackson of shows. They're a unique show. So Curb is off in its own chart. And I'll throw you one more. I love the 24/7 boxing stuff. For a while there, I couldn't get enough of Floyd Mayweather, leaving the club at 3 a.m. and then going running 6 miles through the streets of Las Vegas, chanting hard work and dedication. So I love the 24/7 stuff. So that's my HBO rundown right there.
All right, that was pretty good. Now I haven't seen Succession. I don't have I have Amazon Prime, which had the HBO shows, but then HBO Max took all the HBO stuff. So I don't. So how is the Curb season?
It's solid. He's not throwing 100 miles an hour on his fastball, but I think he's still, he can still get it up there in the upper 90s, and still has some classic lines like he uttered in this last weekend. And I just had watched it. It's funny. I just watched it this morning on demand, where he kind of carried the classic line, I hate people, but I love mankind, which just sort of, sort of sums up his character. So it's still there. It's still funny. It's still great. I haven't seen any, I wouldn't say any of the episodes this year have been all-time Hall of Fame episodes, but still, a tremendous, Larry David is still giving us 7 innings, 3 hits, 8 strikeouts, 2 runs, all performances.
Well done. Were you an Arliss guy?
Arliss, I never really got into the Arliss thing.
Larry Sanders?
I couldn't get into it. You talk about the Gary Shandling
show.
Yeah.
Sorry.
A little bit before my time, not before my time, nothing, hardly anything's before my time now, but I just never got really into that show. I wasn't a big HBO guy at that point, so I haven't really delved. Although I did like Gary Shandling as a stand-up and everything else, I just never got into his show, basically.
Yeah, the book about him. There's this, that whole story about like his the off camera.
Yeah, it was rough. Yeah, was
really
rough,
wild.
Yeah.
Are you still watching Hard Knocks?
I don't watch I've sort of faded from Hard Knocks, over the years. It just doesn't capture me the way it used to capture me.
No, they're doing the in-season one on the Colts right now.
Yeah, I haven't it's tough in seasons. I see it on, but I just haven't gotten around to it. And, Hard Knocks, I just don't see the payoff with it. The stuff behind the scenes. If I'm not really interested in the team, it doesn't really capture my attention. And then, you're talking 6 weeks of episodes. So I've sort of faded from the Hard Knocks view. I watched it when it was early, but not late.
Did you do Boardwalk Empire?
I did Boardwalk Empire at the start. I thought that started off strong and then kind of faded away to a bit of ridiculousness, in its later season. So entertaining show. And yes, I did watch it, probably watched all the seasons, but I thought it kind of lost its fastball as it went on.
Well, I didn't realize you were such an HBO buff. I had like a whole list of other things to talk to you about, but we're not going to get to. We'll have to see. I'll ask you this question, though. It is the 10th of December. By the calendar new year, will Ben Simmons be on the Sixers?
I think he will. I don't know if they're going to trade him. I think they have to trade him between now and what's the deadline? February 10th. Here's the deal. This is a big week for the Sixers, right? We see them beating these Charlotte teams, beating Orlando, but they've got Utah and Golden State. They got rolled by Utah last night. They've got another NBA team that I think there's 5 teams that can win an NBA title. Milwaukee, Brooklyn, Phoenix, Golden State, and Utah, I think, are the 5. So far, the Sixers weren't competitive with Utah. We'll see where they are at Saturday. I can't imagine if they don't go through the year without replacing Ben Simmons. To me, they're throwing the year away. Right now, nothing from Simmons. You got to if you get nothing from Simmons all year, you're taking a year and you're taking a year of Joel Embiid's career and you're throwing it away.
And it doesn't help that Tobias Harris has taken a step back. His numbers are the same, but his efficiency is way down.
Yeah, he's not playing well. But what you do see is Embiid is playing well. Even though they got rolled last night by the Jazz, I thought Embiid was tremendous, especially defensively. I thought he was off the charts great defensively. And it just doesn't seem right to me that he's giving you all offense and defense, and you're not going to do anything to help them win. So I know Simmons has them in a tough spot, but they got to do something because like I said, if they don't get nothing from that Ben Simmons or that Ben Simmons spot, to me, they're throwing the season away, and I don't know how you do that.
All right, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. Have a good weekend, Mike. We got bye week. The Giants play. Who are the Giants playing this week?
I have no idea off the top of my head. All I know is I might be quarterbacking. That's how irrelevant they are, The
Giants play the Chargers.
Chargers, there you go. In Los Angeles, I believe. Yes, there you go.
All right, Mike, we'll talk to you Monday.
All right, we'll see you later.
All right, that's good stuff. He had a good Pantheon list there. Good list. Sopranos, The Wire, Succession. So Succession's this current show. I've heard a lot about it. I haven't seen it. And he put it in number 3. I might have to get this HBO. Got a show that good on his list. All right, what are your favorite HBO shows? Pete and I will put them all together in about 25 minutes. In about an hour and 25 minutes. Sal Palantonio joins me on the other side. A Sal Pal Friday. Eagles at the bye week. Get his thoughts. That's coming up here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. We'll talk a little Eagles. We'll talk a little Dallas, Washington. And I want to get his thoughts on that Bills-Buccaneers game, because could the Bills really not make the playoffs? We'll get Sal Pal's thoughts on that. Coming up here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. All right, 3 o'clock Sports Bash. It's a Sal Pal Friday. Even during the bye week, we got plenty of birds to talk about. There's a key NFC East battle. And I talked about this earlier in the week. Are the Bills in danger of not making the playoffs? They lost last week to New England. They play Tampa this week. They got New England again. This looked like a team that could win the Super Bowl. I'm going to get into that game with Sal and some other NFL nuggets with ESPN senior NFL national correspondent Sal Palantonio. Sal Pal Friday, Johnny G, the Burger Realty team, Ocean City. Great partner, Sal Palantonio and Johnny G, a match made in heaven. What's going on there, Sal Pal Friday? How are you?
Michael, there's never a bye during the NFL season. We can always talk about the birds. And, first of all, let me thank Johnny G and the Burger Realty Group and wish them a happy holidays there. They do a great job, and thank you for supporting my participation on the Sports Bash on your program. I think the Eagles, Mike, I think they have a chance to make real history in the final 4 games of the season. Nobody expected them to make the playoffs, and I think they're going to make the playoffs.
To do so, they would have to go 3-1, you think?
I think they're going to win the final 4 games.
Well, that's an interesting one. So they beat Washington twice. They get the Giants revenge, and then that game against the Dallas Cowboys, they have to beat them. Obviously, it might mean they have to beat them to get in. And it sounds like you like that matchup.
I do, Mike. And it's not because of who they're playing; it's because the way the Eagles play football. And I laid out a blueprint for Channel 6 that's running Sunday night on Sports Final. But, we always like to give your listeners a preview. So here's my blueprint. And I hate to sound like Captain Obvious here, but the number one thing is run the football. I mean, you look at this football team, they have the number 1 rush offense in the National Football League. Number 1. They're number 1 in rushing attempts, number 1 in yards. They're number 2 in yards per carry, and they're number 2 in yards per carry and only 1 decimal point off. They're number 2 in rushing touchdowns. They have 19. The Colts have 20. So they're very close to the top in all 4 of those categories and lead in 2 of them. And, I just think because of the way the right side of the offensive line is playing, and you look at them on film, and the way Landon Dickerson and Lane Johnson are playing on the right side, every one of the RPO runs, the big ones I'm talking about, the big breaking runs, where Jalen Hurts holds the ball, is right over that right side. Teams know it's coming, and they can't stop it.
I often wonder, Sal, we saw Bill Belichick run the ball the other night. They threw the ball 3 times. Now, I get it. There was wind and there was weather involved there. But the way that teams have built their defenses to try to stop the pass, it's almost like teams are saying, your defense is now built to try to stop us passing the ball, so we're going to take advantage of that, and we're going to run the ball against you. And it feels like the Eagles have bought into that and have the right offensive line and personnel to pull that off.
Yeah, so I made 3 talking points going into this week. I listed them. Week 14, major talking points. It says right on my notes, make sure you talk to Mike Gill about this, 3 p.m. on Friday. Number 1, ascending teams are running the football. That's the number 1 thing. Number 2, ascending teams are getting after the quarterback, blitzing the quarterback. So my second point for the Eagles is continue to blitz on 3rd down. The Eagles defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon, he's done a pretty good job, Mike, of sprinkling in some really good 3rd down blitzes lately. I don't know why it took him so long. That's a story for another time. That's a segment you and I can do in March or April. But it's working. So just continue off the edge with the corners, safety blitzes. I'm not talking about just mindless blitzing. 3rd down blitzing has really helped this team create an identity for itself. And taking the offenses off the field and putting Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense back on the field. Third down blitzes. And you mentioned Taylor Heineke. I mean, you can get Taylor Heineke. You know, the way to get him is to blitz him up the middle and cut off his escape routes on the outside. I mean, are we really worried about Daniel Jones or Jake Fromm or Mike Glennon? No, we're not. And by the time the Eagles play Dallas could probably have the division wrapped up. The Eagles may not even face Dak Prescott on January 9th.
Right. Before we get into that game a little bit, I do want to get your thoughts on where Nick Sirianni is as a head coach. I mean, this guy was hired as a complete unknown. He got off to a dubious start. I actually got off to a great start against Atlanta, then kind of rolled backwards and has kind of found his way. And I would say this, you know, one thing with an NFL head coach sometimes that they struggle in is the play clock, game management. I don't think I've ever really said, man, his time management or that part of his game has been dubious, but he has really grown as a head coach. I gotta say, six games they've won already and playing meaningful football games in the month of December. Where do you see Nick Sirianni as the head coach?
Mike, you just said it. They've won 6 games and they're playing meaningful football in December. A+. Mike, A+.
Wow.
I mean, really. I mean, obviously they had the penalty problems early. They had no identity offensively early. They figured it out. They fixed it. Was it a little too late? Yeah, maybe. But what did we say? They won 4 games last year, fired the head coach, and traded the quarterback. We said 6 games would be an improvement. We said win 8 games, and what is that? That's a success. Win 10 games and go to the playoffs? Mike, that's A+.
Well, they've done a good job hiring coaches around here. You know, back to Andy, and then of course, you know, Chip was a little bit of a bump in the road. They found Doug, and then here they are with this guy. So we got to give them credit there. Sal, before we look at some other things this week, where are they on the quarterback situation? Have they made a decision? Do these 4 games, are they the be all end all for Jalen Hurts? Like, are we good if he has 4 tremendous games? Do they say we've got our guy? If he has 4 horrible games, do they say we're moving on? If he's just, I mean, how big are these 4 games for him?
Yeah, well, I saw that column in the Philadelphia Inquirer, the Q&A weekly with the ex-GM, Joe Banner, where he said, Jalen Hurts is playing well, but he's not the answer long term. Well, if he's not, who is? See, that's what I always go back to. People always want to fire the head coach. Well, you're going to fire the head coach? Who you replace him with? If you're going to get rid of Jalen Hurts, who's the quarterback? What's the alternative? Is it Gardner Minshew? Is it a rookie that you're getting in the first round? Is it Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson? You know, what is the answer to the second question?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think anybody has the answer to that question. And I think it's rather unfair to the team right now to address that question, really. I think Hurts is playing and has played well enough to put them in a position to play. Go back to your point. Play meaningful football in December. Play meaningful football in December. And you have to agree with this sentence. Jalen Hurts has made a significant contribution to the Eagles playing meaningful football in December. Don't you agree with that?
He's had over 100 quarterback rating in 4 games this year and a 95 rating in another one. So I guess it's hard to, he's accounted for what, like 3,500 yards in his, it's the numbers have been great. Does he need some things to work on? I would say this, Sal. 16 to 20 games is really not enough to tell the full story on a player, especially at that position. So I don't think it's fair to make a judgment based on however many games he plays this year and the 4 that he had last year. I mean, if the Bills pulled the plug on Josh Allen after his first 2 years, they would have made a tremendous mistake.
Yeah. And you know what? The Baltimore Ravens are about to pay Lamar Jackson a whole lot of money. And in my view, considering where he is right now as a quarterback now, that's a mistake.
By the way,
everybody wants to – go ahead.
I was in the car on Sunday night and got to listen to one Sal Paolantonio doing the color commentary for Pittsburgh versus Baltimore.
Hey, Mike, I got to tell you, I'm addicted to it.
It's a lot of fun, man. I'll tell you.
I absolutely love being in the booth. And you know the old saying, they won't say thank you, but they will ask you back if they like you. And they keep asking me back.
And then I saw you doing double duty. You were down talking to Ben Roethlisberger about 20 minutes when the game was over.
Yeah, ESPN's having money problems, Mike, you know. No, you know, I really enjoy doing both. I really do. I like the interaction with the players and the coaches. And, you know, I missed that last year. But I got to tell you, and Sean Kelly does a great job. Mark Kestecher does a great job. I mean, the ESPN radio crew is just fun to be around. And being in the booth covering the game is just awesome. Calling the game, it's just great. And radio, you can breathe. Oh, you know the whole drill. Radio is just great, and people respond to it. It's cool. As for Washington and Dallas, you know, the Eagles had such an opportunity. They blew it when they lost to the Giants. But you know, if Washington can protect Taylor Heineke, they can win the game. Because in my view right now, Micah Parsons is the defensive rookie player of the year. And Dan Quinn's done a really good job of moving him around the line of scrimmage. And, you know, they've been very difficult to block. So that game is, again, number 2. Can you protect the passer down the stretch? Because that's where the league is right now.
The other game that I have my eye, Buffalo to me against Tampa. I mean, Buffalo's got to win this game. I mean, they're in trouble and not making the playoffs.
Total desperation time for a team that everybody thought was going to be in the Super Bowl. Peter King picked them to be in the Super Bowl on, Football Morning in America, that column that everybody reads. A lot of people at ESPN picked them to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I thought they had Super Bowl aspirations for sure, but, you know, they're in desperation time down in Tampa, and that's a bad place to be in desperation mode because you can't beat the Bucs down there. You know that Tom Brady, listen to this. Tom Brady is 32-3 against Buffalo. He's thrown 70 touchdown passes against Buffalo. 70.
It's crazy.
32-3.
It's crazy.
I mean, he has just owned – there's nobody who has owned a team more than Brady owning the Buffalo Bills. And teams have got to figure out going down. I don't know who's going to stop the Bucs, but whoever does, it is going to be the team that, again, pressures the quarterback, pressures TB12. You know he's only hit 43 times?
Yeah.
Drop back to pass 527 times, most in the league. Been hit 43 times, fewest of any starting quarterback. If they don't figure out how to start hitting Tom Brady, he's just going to moonwalk right to L.A. to the Super Bowl.
Well, Christmas Day, they're doing the what's Fox doing, the 2-hour John Madden documentary before the football game at 4. They're going to do something like that for Brady 20 years from now. We're going to marvel back that we watched this guy at 44 years old doing some of the things that he does. I mean, it's unbelievable, some of the things that he has done in his career. So, I don't know. I'm just glad that we're all getting to watch it. You're getting to cover it. You get to talk to Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger. Whose life's better than yours, Sal Pal?
Hey, man. Great to be on your show. We'll talk next week.
There you go, Sal Pal Friday. And that's thanks to ESPN senior national correspondent Sal Paolantonio. Sal Pal Friday, Johnny G, the Burger Realty team. They always help us out getting Sal to call in here on the Sports Bash Friday, Sal Pal Friday edition. I enjoyed the conversation and, of course, enjoyed really this Week 14 matchup where the Eagles don't play. And as Sal mentioned, this Washington-Dallas game is really at the top of the list of things that we will continue to look at today on the show. Also, good conversation. You know, I bring up the John Madden thing. On Christmas Day, okay? Christmas Day, you have the NBA is typically Christmas Day. They own Christmas Day. Well, this year you've got 2 football games on Christmas Day. The first game, I think, is like what time? Do you know what time the football game is on Christmas Day? It's like I want to say it's a 4 o'clock. Is it a 4 and an 8, or is it a 2 and a 6? Well, regardless of the time, 4:30 is the first game. So Fox is doing a documentary on John Madden, and it's going to be, I guess, 2 to 4, and they'll have like a half-hour pregame show. Like, most people in the younger portion of this audience, they only know John Madden because he had a football game. But you talk about Sal doing the color commentary. He did the color on the ESPN radio broadcast of Steelers and Ravens this past week. John Madden was the top color commentary guy in football for years. So I'm looking forward to the documentary on. I don't know how I feel about Christmas Day football games, though. That seems like a lot of investment on Christmas. Like, the basketball's on, it's on in the background. You got to put more focus when you're watching football game, right? Who plays that day? It's like the Browns and the Ravens, isn't it?
You got the Browns and the Packers at 4:30.
The Browns and the Packers.
And then your 8:15 kick is Colts Cardinals.
That's a good one.
So you
Got
got
two good ones.
You got some legitimate games.
Yeah, they're on
Christmas.
Saturday, so it's not a Thursday like Thanksgiving.
Your Thursday night game that week is actually the 49ers and the Titans.
That's a good one. I mean, it's not like high profile, but both those, it's going to be a playoff implicator.
So, you got some holiday things to look forward to, Mike.
Well, the Saturday games start next weekend. Vegas, Cleveland, New England, and the Colts. That's next Saturday, 2 games.
That Pats Colts.
See, I bet you in Vegas,
important.
Cleveland, I bet you they wish they took the Eagles, Washington.
I'm sure they do.
Because now it's like a Saturday standalone, 2 games.
They
had like 5. No, I hate the Saturday game.
Okay.
I don't like when my team plays
so
on
Mike
that
Gill
Saturday.
Is still happy that.
I didn't want them to put the Eagles on that Saturday. I do not like when my team plays on Saturday.
Gotcha.
But you have.
I always like to get the Mike Gill perspective on these things.
That's great. Vegas, Cleveland, New England, Colts. So what do they do? Like a 4 and an 8 on the Saturday, something like that. And then after that, you got Saturday the 18th, Saturday the 25th.
Yeah, it's a 4:30 and an 8:20 next Saturday.
Surprised they're not doing any games on, I guess because of all the bowl games. You got the Fiesta, the Rose, and the Sugar on New Year's Day. But the NFL could have just stomped in there, too, and owned that. They just told the NBA, get out of my way.
Well, maybe the NFL looks at college football as an ally more than the.
Well, that's why they don't play these Saturday games until after Army-Navy.
Right, and that's why college football gets to own that weekend before.
Sports Bash is brought to you by Calvi Electric Company, now offering residential services for your home and business online, calvielectric.com. I'm Mike Gill, Sports Bash Live, your favorite HBO shows. Send me your list. We'll read them off later on. Pete Thompson today at 4:30. 326, weeks 14 in the NFL is here. Last night we had Minnesota knocking off Pittsburgh. You heard that game on 97.3 ESPN. And in that game, we saw almost a historical ending. It would have been the biggest comeback in the history of the NFL for a regular season, 29 points. Obviously, the Music City Miracle is the biggest comeback in playoff history. But that would have been the deal there. You would have seen a historic comeback last night had the Pittsburgh Steelers found a way to get back in the game. And what did it do for the standings? Well, let's take a look in the NFC portion of things for the playoffs. It actually moved Philadelphia from 8 down to 9. The Vikings win the tiebreaker based on percentage in common games. This is interesting because they're both 6 and 7. They obviously didn't play. They play in different divisions. Their conference record is 4 and 4, both of them. So now you go to the next tiebreaker is how they did in common games. And I don't know what the record is there and if Philadelphia can pass them, but that's something to note because if Minnesota and Philly end up with the same record now, Philadelphia is behind Minnesota and San Francisco won the head-to-head battle with Philadelphia. So we'd have to try to, let's see Minnesota's schedule real quick. So Philadelphia played Detroit. They both beat Detroit. Philadelphia played the Panthers. They both beat the Panthers. They both lost to the Cowboys. Minnesota beat the Chargers. Philadelphia lost to the Chargers. They both lost to the 49ers. So I guess it's pretty close in the common games there. Now, they played Detroit twice. They beat them once and lost to them. So I don't know how that factors in either. That's a little odd. You know, Minnesota is ahead of Philadelphia, Josh, because they don't play in the same division.
Mm-hmm.
They did not play head-to-head, which is the first tiebreaker.
Right.
The second tiebreaker is division. They're not in the same division. They're both 4 and 4 in conference. It says that Minnesota is ahead based on common games.
Like common opponents?
I would guess so. It says wins the tiebreaker over Philadelphia based on best win percentage in common games.
Well, let me pull up the Vikings schedule. I'll let you know exactly what the.
Well, I looked at that. Now, they've played Detroit twice. So I guess, and they lost to them once.
Right. So you got to throw that out.
They both played Carolina. They both beat Carolina. They both lost to Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Minnesota beat the Chargers, so there's an extra loss for Philly. They both lost to the 49ers, and then there you go. But
So,
they split with the Lions.
So I guess they're saying that the Chargers win is the one they're talking about?
So they have, in common games, they have 1, 2, 3 wins, and they have 1, 2, 3 losses. They are 3 and 3 in common games. That's a 500 win percentage.
Right.
And in common games for Philadelphia, I've never seen it really come down to this before.
Yeah, I don't remember this being a traditional tiebreaker.
So
It
the
used to be
common
conference
games
record.
would be Philadelphia's 1, 2, 3 losses in those games, and they only have 2 wins, I think.
So
1, 2. So they're 2 and 3. So the percentage goes to 500 versus whatever Philadelphia is.
And Philadelphia doesn't really have an opportunity to make up any ground on that because they don't play anybody else but the NFC East the rest of the year.
Well, they do play Dallas, and Minnesota, I think, played Dallas. Didn't it say they played Dallas or no?
They played Dallas. Oh, that was the Cooper Rush game.
Okay, so if Philadelphia could get the win against Dallas,
they would be tied.
But they could the conference record could change.
Correct.
And that's where Philadelphia at this point needs to pass. Because I was saying Minnesota now, if they have the tiebreaker over you, that's a problem because San Francisco also has the tiebreaker over you.
Really quick, here's the final schedule for the Vikings moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
You have the Vikings at the Bears on Monday Night Football.
Conference.
Then you have the Vikings at home versus the Rams.
Conference.
The week after that is Vikings on the road at the Packers.
Conference.
And then the final week is Vikings at home versus the Bears.
Conference. So they have 4 conference and you have 4 conferences.
So theoretically,
if you both end up with the same record, they're going to knock you out.
Correct.
Although, no, because Philadelphia plays Dallas.
Well, if you beat Dallas, you have the same.
You would have the same record against
common
common games. So then
so
what's
then
the
it
next?
comes down to your conference record, I guess.
No. I think conference is the number 3 tiebreaker, but they have the same conference record. They're on the 4th tiebreaker.
So what's the 5th tiebreaker?
That's what I'm asking. What is next? If they both have the same conference record and the common games, if Philly beat Dallas, they both would be 3-3 in common opponent games.
Let me look this up.
Right? I mean, that's the way I'm seeing it. See, that win last night by Minnesota really added another layer to this race, because if Minnesota lost the game last night, they're really out of it. They fall to 5-8, and you feel like, okay, they're kind of out Dunsky, right? Well, they win the game. They go to 6-7, and the next thing you know is, it's really a 3-team race with 5 to go.
So here is, according to NFL's official rules, the full breakdown.
Give them to me.
So if you have so the Eagles-Vikings scenario, here is the order from 1 through 12.
Well, it's head-to-head.
So you have head-to-head.
Then it is
then you have
your division record.
Best won-loss tied percentage of games played within the division.
Correct.
Then
they don't play in the same division, so that's out for these two.
So then it's best win-loss percentage in common games we just talked about.
Oh, so that's number 3?
That's 3.
Over the conference?
Yes. Conference is 4th.
That's surprising.
Strength of victory is 5th. So that's where your points for, points against come in.
That's interesting. So Philadelphia is Philadelphia is 337 points. They're a plus 46. Minnesota's a plus 11, so they would win that.
Okay, the 6th one is strength of schedule, which the Eagles have one of the easiest schedules. Number 7 is
they do have that listed here. The strength of schedule right now, Philadelphia's is 471 and Minnesota's is 506. So Minnesota has a slight
difficult
strength of schedule, but Washington could change that.
Your 7th tiebreaker is best combined ranking among conference teams in points scored and points allowed. So basically, you have to remove all of the AFC games the Eagles and Vikings played.
Oh, jeez.
For the plus minus. That's the 7th tiebreaker. The 8th tiebreaker is best combined ranking among all teams in points scored and allowed. So then you go to the overall number.
The overall, so plus 48, plus 11.
Is best net points in common games. They got to go through each of their common games and get the plus minus in that. Your 10th tiebreaker is best net points in all games. 11th is best net touchdowns in all games.
Can you imagine if it got to this point? And now, why would I think that in 2021, the way this season has gone, that it wouldn't go to one of these?
Oh, but the final tiebreaker is the most one's good. I'm glad you're sitting down. It's a coin toss.
They just flip the coin.
The 12th tiebreaker is a coin toss.
They couldn't think of anything else to find to separate these teams.
So let's hope we don't get the 12.
Can you imagine? You were sitting there. That would be network television, right?
You got to air that, right?
Somebody would have to put that on TV.
That would have to be Howie Roseman and Rick Spielman in a room with the commissioner, right?
Well, what you do is you put them at the 50-yard line of wherever the Super Bowl is this year, and you have Phil Luckett flip the coin. Wasn't Phil Luckett the guy who was the official the day on Thanksgiving when Jerome Bettis said that they wanted the heads and he got it wrong?
Yeah.
I think it was Phil Luckett was the official.
So would you rather the coaches be there for the coin flip or the GMs be there for the coin flip?
I don't have a preference there.
Or do we do
I think
both?
I just would rather have Roseman to piss off the Eagles fans more. Like that he would be the symbol of them
the
potentially getting into the playoffs and winning.
Well, I'm just thinking about how like the draft, the lottery, they have like, the people they pick.
Yeah, you could put Brian Dawkins would be the Eagles representative. Minnesota would
John
put
Randall.
John
Randall, right? They both consider a defensive guy. Or do you do McNabb and Randy Moss?
Randy Moss would be a good one.
I would like to see John Randall just for the fun of it.
That's fine.
We send Dawkins, they send Randall. They stare at each other for like 5 minutes till the coin's tossed.
Yeah, that's good. That would be good TV, right? Just put the coins flip on there. We've gone through 11 tiebreakers. You guys are still tied. We're just going to flip a coin. That's who's going to get. No, but the win last night put Minnesota at 8. It put Philadelphia at 9. Now, keep in mind, what happens this weekend, if Carolina wins, Philadelphia would stay ahead of them.
Correct.
If Atlanta wins, because one of those teams are going to win, so somebody else is going to be 6 and 7 after this weekend. You're going to have, if Washington loses, they're 6 and 7.
Right.
If San Francisco loses, they're 6 and 7.
Yeah.
Minnesota's already 6 and 7. Philadelphia's 6 and 7. Carolina or Atlanta, one of those teams is winning this weekend, which would make them 6 and 7. So you could potentially have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 teams all tied for the 6 and 7 seeds in the NFC.
This is the moment we've all been waiting for, right?
And by the way, if New Orleans wins this weekend, they would be 6 and 7. You know who they play? The Jets.
Of course they do.
So the Saints could be 6 and 7.
Watch them lose to the Jets now.
Wow. So if Washington loses and San Francisco lose, now Washington's an underdog. San Francisco's a favorite.
Correct.
So at the end of this weekend, now Philadelphia has beaten Carolina, Atlanta, and New Orleans. So they would not move up the standings, either one of them. They would still be below. The worst Philly could be after the end of this weekend is 9th.
Correct. Which is insane.
And the best they could be after this weekend is 9. They cannot move anymore.
Right, because they're not
Oh,
playing.
no. Well,
if Washington loses,
I don't know who wins the tiebreaker between Washington and Philly.
I'd have to go look at the list.
Right.
The NFL has an email I got to find somewhere with all these information.
Well, I'll tell you right now, it's division, and Washington's 1-0 in the division. They would be 1-1, and Philadelphia's 0-2 in the division. So Washington would still be ahead of Philadelphia. But if Washington loses and falls to 6 and 7, and San Francisco won, San Francisco would be 6. Washington, I don't know who has the tiebreaker between Washington and Minnesota. I mean, that's how close it is, everybody. Like when we're looking at these standings in the NFC, and now last night in the AFC, think about this, what that loss did to Pittsburgh.
Right.
6-6, and now remember, they have the one tie. So they are still a 500 team at 6-6-1. Well, that tie is keeping them in the mix here because they are only really a half a game behind Buffalo and a half a game behind Cincinnati and a half a game behind the Chargers. All those teams are 7-5. You're 6-6-1. So Vegas is 6-6. Cleveland is 6-6. Denver is 6-6. And Miami, who has a bye this week, is 6-7.
This is so insane.
Isn't it crazy? So you're telling me that you don't think the possibility of having one of those wonky tie-breaking scenarios happen?
I think you just want the coin toss now.
Yeah, I just want to see Howie Roseman be the guy who's.
You want to see Howie Roseman fist pump when he wins the coin toss and make all the Eagle fans mad?
How devastating would that be if it came down to the coin toss and you lost the coin toss? I mean, seriously, like that is the best they can come up with. Who agreed to that?
That's the 12th option.
Still, it's the 12th. It's not getting there. What's the furthest it's ever gone, I wonder?
I mean, I'm looking at the list right now. I believe the last time I remember there was a strength of schedule several years ago when there were teams that were 7-9.
Which isn't even anything you can control.
Right. It's completely out of your control, which is why it's a strange tiebreaker. Like, why would strength of schedule be the 6th tiebreaker? I mean, some of these are just so confusing.
Coming up.
Something less confusing?
Yeah. No, this is actually probably more confusing.
Oh, no.
I have Christmas gift ideas for your significant other, and this list stinks. But you might find something on this list that you like, so I'm going to help you gentlemen out.
I'm looking forward to this.
Stick around. Sports Bash is coming up. Pete Thompson, 4:30. Rob Motti, Casey Joyner. One thought every game. Jeff Kerr tonight. Jeff Kerr wrote an interesting piece over at CBS Sports about what the Eagles need to happen this weekend. We'll get into that. Sports Bash is brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan. The all-new Matt Blatt Nissan is now open on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. next to Home Depot, online at mattblattnissan.com. All right, guys, I'm going to help you buy a gift for your wife, your girlfriend. Stick around. I got that list. You really want to hear this list. It's coming up next. Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. All right. So this is 2 weeks before Christmas. You guys need to get some ideas for your wife or girlfriend. I'm here to help you. Although this is the list that I found, and I don't know that I would use any of these 65 of the best Christmas gift ideas for women, ranging from your mom to your sister or your wife.
Now, the interesting part about this, Mike, is that I'm the single guy here.
Okay. So you don't need any of these ideas.
Well, I already got my mom her gift, but I got her something specifically that I knew she wanted because she kind of been hinting about it for months.
Okay.
So I already got that on lockdown. But I'm curious to hear this list from my very different perspective.
The Fluff Yeah Slide sheepskin slippers.
The what?
They're $100.
I'm sorry. Can you read that again?
Sheepskin slides. The Fluff Yeah Slide, it's called.
So they're sheepskin.
Yeah, it's like an UGG. You know an UGG boot?
Yeah.
It's just a slippered version of this.
Okay. I mean, sure.
And they have like there's like a slide,
right.
And then there's like a little elastic part on the back so that your foot didn't come out.
Okay, that's a little
Just
fancy.
Breathe Spa gift set. It's $84. It's a 5-piece spa gift set. Includes a coconut scented bath soak along with other goodies. We'll give her everything she needs to create a spa-like atmosphere right at home.
I mean, that sounds great for somebody who maybe is still uncomfortable with going out and doing things still.
High-rise compressive leggings. I don't know what that.
Okay, so this is
$78.
one of those trendy things. I see people wearing these in different places. I see people even going out in the compression.
It's like a high-waisted jean.
So compression leggings are basically they're like yoga pants, but they're compression yoga pants basically. They're supposed to help you if you have circulation issues, or
Gotcha.
maybe you have sore legs from something, or maybe you stand all day at work. And I've heard of and seen women wear these under a skirt if they're working as a waitress or something.
All right. Next up, we've got the eco-friendly slides.
What makes them eco-friendly?
They're launched a collection of recycle and recyclable slides. For those days you need something low maintenance to slip on your feet, these sleek, minimalist slides help you get on with your day without creating waste.
Sure.
They are $58. A silk wrap dress. It's a delicate blush hue that will make her feel luxurious. It's $135.
Now, what's the point of buying that unless you're taking her out somewhere in that?
Well, maybe you're planning on taking her out. Maybe that's like an accessory to, hey, I'm taking you somewhere, and here's the dress I bought you for that.
Is that one of those things where maybe as part of the gift, you write on a card, this is for our upcoming date on blah, blah, blah day.
Yeah, I'm taking you someplace,
really
and this
nice,
is what I want you to wear.
This is what you're going to
wear. I don't
wear.
think you picking out what she was going to wear is going to be a smart idea, though. That would be my advice.
That sounds like you're living dangerously.
Very dangerously. The number 6 is the cozy bamboo night dress. It's the epitome of bedtime coziness. It makes sustainable clothing from super soft bamboo fabric.
I've never heard of bamboo fabric.
$47. A bamboo knit wrap.
It's like bamboo the thing?
Perfect for cuddling in front of the fireplace. $80.
I mean, why don't you just get her a big blanket?
Apple AirPods. Apple AirPods is a nice one, but most times when you buy a woman electronics, that doesn't go over too well either.
I mean, I feel like if you're buying her something that's electronic, it should be something that's she's hinted for months.
Right. Hey, I really want those AirPods.
Or I really want this laptop or whatever. You went out somewhere together, right? And you happen to be walking around. She's like, hey, I'd like to have that maybe someday.
$160, by the way. Apple AirPods.
I feel like they should be less expensive.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they've been out long enough that the price of those should be coming down.
Right? That's what I thought.
A personalized wreath planner. I guess it's because it has a wreath design on the front, but who has a booked planner now?
I feel like giving a woman a planner is a very cheap option.
It's $55 for this wreath leather planner. Number 10, the cookie press. It's a 23-piece cookie press that comes with 14 discs featuring trees, wreath, snowman, candy cane, and other delightful designs. It's $30.
Now this makes sense if she's like rolling in the cooking.
Can you imagine if she opened that and said, a cookie press? You got me. What do you want me to make you cookies?
Well, if she likes making cookies or something like
Honey,
that.
I got you a cookie press. I want you to make me cookies. A coffee capsule gift set. For the coffee lover in your life, it's a sampler of 50 Nespresso pod capsules. It features 5 festive flavors: Irish cream, holiday blend, cremoso mocha, peppermint bark, and salted caramel.
Right, because we all know what cremoso mocha is.
I have peppermint bark at my house currently.
I've heard of peppermint bark, but I don't know what
okay.
cremoso mocha is.
A Sherpa sling bag.
I'm sorry, a what?
It's basically like an UGG, but like a bag, like a fanny pack, but made with Sherpa.
Okay, I got nothing for you there.
The fanny pack.
Do people still would do that?
This is where they really start to get like, I was like, all right, you got to be kidding me with some of these options. Number 13, the personalized yarn bowl. Now, yeah, if your wife or girlfriend is knitting, but I mean, in 2022, who under the age of 60 is knitting something with yarn that you would need a yarn bowl? And a $60 yarn bowl at that.
I feel like some of these were written by somebody who has no idea what they're doing.
An interchangeable knitting needle set.
Again, that goes with the last one.
A custom candle.
What makes a custom candle?
Well, it's the candle, and then on the front of it, it says your words here. So I guess you can basically put like Joni's candle,
world's best
Phyllis's
mom.
candle, world's best mom. There you go.
That's where my mind
went. A personalized acrylic jewelry stand, a cashmere sweater, an earth-friendly throw blanket.
What's it? What is an earth-friendly throw blanket?
It's just basically a blanket that's made from recycled plastics.
And that's comfortable?
You throw that on the ground if you're picnicking or something, I guess. I don't know.
Sure.
A golden hour skincare set, a MAC lip kit set, initials necklace, a crossbody phone bag. Oh, this one I loved. Number 23, plaid smoking loafers. Plaid. Hey, can you pass me my smoking loafers? I wanted to suck on this carton of cigarettes today. The best way for her to show off her Christmas spirit, this adorable pair of plaid smoking.
Apparently they're adorable.
Adorable pair of plaid smoking loafers, which will complement any red and green holiday look. I could just see like this woman just sucking down cigarettes all day wearing her plaid smoking loafers.
It's gotta be like Parliaments, right? You know, like they're smoking.
Can you hand me my Parliaments over there?
Exactly.
I'm about to light one up here.
I feel like I'm talking about my grandmother here.
A dip polish starter kit. I don't know what that is. A woman's messenger bag briefcase.
Message in a bottle?
A headband. That's just what she wants to open. A brand new headband.
Thanks for the headband.
A Kodak Mini Shot 3 Retro, which is $120.
I mean, I guess that's cool for like someone who's older.
I hope I helped you guys out there. There was a couple gift ideas.
Or maybe you gave them some good warnings what not to get.
A Smitten Kitchen cookbook, an apron and oven mitt set. Oh, I'm sure she would love that. Our charcuterie board cookbook. It's really trendy.
That is very trendy.
A Nespresso milk frother. Dear Lord, who came up with these ideas? It's football at 4 coming up next. Adam Kaplan. Oh, he'll tell us what the tape said about Gardner Minshew. Stick around. All right, Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you locally by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long. Wild Wild West, Tropicana, Harrah's Resort Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. Jeff Mosher and Adam Kaplan bring you the Inside the Birds podcast, and Adam joins me on Fridays for this edition of Football at 4 from the Inside the Birds podcast. And, of course, Adam, we welcome you to a happy hour Friday. What's going on, man?
Good to talk to you. Yeah, look, it is the bye week. It is the Friday during a bye week. Eagles will reconvene, I believe, on Monday morning, have that usual short practice after the bye, get back to the regular practice week as they lead up on Wednesday, as they lead up to playing the Washington football team, who's won 4 in a row but plays the hated Cowboys this week. So lots going on here around the Eagles.
Yeah, well, it's good. It kind of fell perfectly. The week the Eagles have the bye, that you have this juicy NFC East matchup here between Dallas and Washington. We'll get to that in a little bit, but I want to look back a little bit because you guys during Inside the Birds podcast this week really broke down some interesting things. The Eagles beat the Jets, obviously. Gardner Minshew was really the story, and of course, you have the people on the Minshew side. Of course, the Eagles are going to stick with Hurts, but that is the plan the rest of the way. Let's get that out of the way. Correct. The Eagles are going to stick with Jalen Hurts.
No matter what happens. I know that the question that people have asked, well, what happens if he struggles? It's okay. That they'll leave him in there. They want to get the full evaluation. They kind of know where he is at the 3-quarter mark. They want to see how he does, and potentially also, what if – I remember talking to the Eagles when Wentz was dealing with injuries in 2018, 2019, and they wanted to see how he would do during the playoffs. Now, obviously, against Seattle, he got knocked out by a cheap shot by Jadeveon Clowney. But the bottom line is you'd love to see Hurts as a quarterback in the wild card round getting work in a playoff type setting. That would be the best case scenario over the next 4 games plus the potential playoff, getting that 7th seed, which is probably which obviously the best they can do. But they're still in it, very much in it. As a matter of fact, that I cannot emphasize how huge that win was against the Jets, because how they would have lost there, they would have fallen to 5-8 instead of being 6-7. A huge difference. This is not Major League Baseball where one game's not going to matter. You only get now 17 games. So whether it's a conference game or not really doesn't matter. It counts against your record. I think people need to understand that.
Well, and it all falls evident to that last night where Minnesota won the game and actually moved ahead of you because of common opponent record.
There you
they
go.
have a better percentage in common games, and that put Minnesota ahead of Philadelphia. So that shows you how big, all these games are at this time of the year. Yep. Let's look at the tape for Minshew. What are we seeing? Because a lot of people say, well, does he give you a better chance to win?
The thing that he does a better job of, this is clear, and we kind of knew this going in. He's a better processor. It's not that he's just started more. That's the thing where he was really, really good as a rookie in 2019 when he won 6 AFC Rookie of the Week awards, and coached by John DeFilippo. You might remember him here, who's the guy who coached Carson Wentz as a rookie, one of the best quarterback developers in the National Football League. So Minshew was terrific that season, really ahead of the curve. His overall record's bad, but you have to look at the rest of the team, how bad their defense was, just how bad of a football team they've been. But there are issues with him. The ball lacks juice, doesn't have a lot of velocity on it. He's a touch passer. He doesn't really drive the football. You saw, and there were no issues with weather last week, that the ball lacked some action, and that's a concern. They barely, on one of the touchdowns that got it, the ball barely had to get there. He had to stop for it. You don't want that. Hurts got a better arm. There's no doubt. That's not in question. But it's just that Minshew, you ask the question, would they be better off if they're trying to get in the playoffs, or is he a better quarterback? Now, yes, I think Minshew, if you just line up just passing, yes. But Hurts gives you that element of the run, which Minshew does not give you. He's a scrambler. He had one nice scramble last week. But Hurts at his best is a guy, when the pocket breaks down, he could run and get you a first down. And you don't design runs for Minshew. That's a difference. It's certainly subjective. There's no way to really know that. But if you're just looking for a guy who will execute the offense without running, it would be Minshew.
You find it interesting, Adam. I hear a lot. I don't know about you, but I hear a lot of, well, Hurts doesn't have a strong enough arm. He can't push the ball down the field. Yet the same breath, they're saying they'd rather see Minshew play.
Well, I mean, I saw it with that 91-yard pass and run in week 2 to Quez Watkins, where I know some people question Hurts' arm strength. It's not elite. I would say it's above average to good. It's got enough for most throws. You're not going to make every throw, but he can make most throws. Well, Minshew, you're not going to ask him to make every throw because he can't do it. It's just that accuracy, I think, overall is going to be better with Minshew. In fact, I know that just because this is what the tape shows. And there's more you can do from a pass game standpoint because he's just a better passer. In terms of accuracy, just functioning within an offense, yes, that's kind of where both guys are. But they both haven't started 4 or 5 seasons. That's what we have to understand. And by the way, we had Joe Banner on. We've interviewed Joe Banner a lot, the former Eagles and Browns president. He does such a phenomenal job of breaking down not only Jalen Hurts about where he is, about what he sees and what he knows. I mean, we talk about Donovan McNabb when he was younger, and I'll also remember when Doug Peterson was the starting quarterback, Donovan's first year, about what to look for and what he knows about the situation. It's just phenomenal. I don't want to give it away, but it's on our interview with him, which you can find on any of our podcasting platforms and also on YouTube.
Let's go to Miles Sanders because there has been a lot of conversation about, is Jordan Howard the best guy? Boston Scott, when he plays, he gives you something. Gainwell needs more touches. But Miles Sanders got his first real opportunity to kind of be the guy. How did he handle it?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, look, he's been the starter the whole season. It's just that he hasn't been healthy enough for a sustained period of time where you knew that he was going to be the guy in this unbelievably run-oriented offense. Number 1 in total yards, the National Football League, total carries. It's really remarkable what they're doing. And Miles Sanders, you ran hard with velocity. This is the notes that we got from our sources. Ran with velocity and power, vision, finish runs, great at setting up blocks, ran in daylight. This is something you couldn't see off TV. You can't really see this part of it. Though this one person we spoke to said that despite all that, he thought there were at least 15 yards that Sanders left on the field. You know, guys like Sanders who are always trying to break the long run, not always, but a lot of times do. They will go if the plays to the A gap, he might go to the B gap, and that's just the way it is. That's what happens when you leave yards on the field. You just see something innate in you, which you can't really teach. It's just something that they really do, and you don't want to correct it because it makes them special that way. And Sanders was phenomenal before he re-injured that troublesome lingering ankle injury, so that does concern. But again, they are on a bye this week.
Yeah, he went down and he noticeably grabbed that thing, and we'll see. You're right. They do have the bye. We'll see if he ends up coming back from that. The other guy, I thought Gainwell, had the touchdown run. I'm interested could Gainwell be a guy they could put in the slot and do some more things with?
Well, he's not really a slot receiver. You could, a couple times a game, yes, you could line him up in the slot. You could line him up outside at that X position. We had Ryan Silverfield on, his head coach from Memphis prior to the season, and he actually mentioned that. He goes, you remember now, not only do we move our guys around, Silverfield said that they give their running backs a ton of responsibility in the pass game. Antonio Gibson now is starting running back for Memphis. He started as a slot receiver for Memphis. They use Gainwell a lot as a pass receiver. He was phenomenal in 2019. And let's not forget that he opted out last year. So that's probably why his usage has been inconsistent. But I'd love to see him used more, no doubt about it.
Gainwell with the touchdown last week, so we'll see if they expand him too. All right, the wide receivers. Let's look at we're at the midway, not the midway. We're at the bye week here. Wide receivers still seem to be an issue, but they got Goddard way more involved last week.
Yeah.
Was that play calling? Is that Minshew? How do you read the way that Goddard was used last week? And then we'll look at the wideouts.
Both, actually, 3 things. Matchups. The Jets don't cover tight ends well. That's been a real problem for them. They're really bad at safety. That's number 1. Number 2, he was my player of the game in our pregame show going into the game because I thought, based on the way that Minshew throws the ball short and intermediate, he should be heavily targeted. Well, what do you have, 7? I know it was 6 for 6. The other one I think was a penalty. But he caught all 6. He had 2 touchdowns. And he just was dominant. They couldn't handle him. I just, to me, Mike, going forward, he should lead them. He should be the focal point of the passing game, not Devontae Smith. Smith should be 1A. Goddard 1. And by the way, it was the heaviest they used 3 tight ends this season. Tyree Jackson, who's obviously converted from quarterback to tight end, he actually started the game. and they started in 3 tight end sets.
I thought too in that game, Adam. I thought they did. I think it was 14 catches that went to either tight ends or running backs. We don't see them use the running backs out of the backfield enough, in my opinion. Screen game, little dump offs.
Yeah,
that's not a big part of their game, but it was on Sunday. And I know the Jets are really bad at defending running backs.
Well, wait till you see, on the coaching tape, you could see it. They are so far off the running backs, and there's so much space. Either you check. First of all, the Eagles called screens. That was part of it, and the other ones were check down. So you got to give Minshew credit for processing and saying, you know what, we've got something here. Instead of what Wentz would do, one of the things that really bothered us, particularly myself on Inside the Birds last year, with Mosher and I, every week we'd say, why won't he check it down? Stop trying to make the big play. It's there. This 5 to 7 yard completion is good as a 5 or 7 yard run. By the way, coaches call a 5 yard run or more an explosive play. That's an explosive play. You should check it down, and Minshew did a great job of that.
And then, of course, the wide receivers, which,
they're
not getting anything from Rieger. That we know.
Yep.
Watkins had a play or two in the game. Smith, though, has really been taken out the last couple of weeks. Why are the receivers, even Smith, struggling?
It was weird. They went with more. Now, we knew they would run the ball like crazy, and they did. They went with 3 tight ends, and they had Rieger on the field a little bit more than we expected than Smith. That was really the only thing. I would expect that to change after the bye. In fact, I'm really interested to see what their game plan is against Washington, because Washington's defense, Mike, and their 4-game win streak is really gotten better. And can you believe it? Casey Toohill, a former 7th-round pick for the Eagles, is now starting for Washington because they have injuries at the end. The Eagles should have kept him. That was a guy they just never gave a real chance, and he could have helped them this season.
The offensive line, needless to say, has been dominating,
Unreal.
but just how good. And you wonder if they're playing against a team that has more talent than them, how much does that line equalize things?
Well, listen, the Saints game, the Saints have the best defense the Eagles have played this season. The Eagles beat the bleep out of them. This is a family show, so I won't say what I want to say. But they absolutely mauled them. It was shocking. I didn't see that coming. No one did. And the teams know what's coming, but they double team just in our sources notes. Well, this past game, the Jets are really small up front, and it showed. Their double teams at the point of attack were outstanding. They're very cohesive. Their timing, their footwork's great. Their hand usage is great. Blocking technique. They're obviously going to run like hell every game. This is what they have to do, no matter who the quarterback is. That's the game plan. And I expect them to do that, even against Washington, who's got a good front. I expect them to run well. If they don't run for 150 yards in each week at least, that's probably going to be a loss for them if they don't do that.
All right, Adam Kaplan from the Inside the Birds podcast. It's football at 4. Let's look at the Eagles' defense at the bye week here versus the Jets. They lost. I talked about this. I think I was talking about this yesterday with somebody. I said, this is a team that lost Brandon Brooks, who's a Pro Bowler. They lost Sayamala, who's a very good player. They lost Brandon Graham, and they're 6-7. That defensive line without Graham, where are they? Kind of, you forget that Graham wasn't here. I mean, their line could be better, but what role did they have in the improvement of this defense?
Yeah, and look, I think when you look at it, we knew Graham not being there was going to be a problem because he's a really good run guy. Obviously, his effort, he's a good pass rusher, big with the quarterback pressures. It's going to be a problem. They have not recovered from that. There's no doubt. Derek Barnett has really come on lately. That's been a good sign. Javon Hargrave, best game he's had in about 6 weeks. He was phenomenal in this game. We don't know what the problem's been up to last week, but he was great. I mean, he's been healthy. Cox had some good plays. Their linebackers as blitzers did a good job. They covered fairly well. They missed some tackles in the first half against Tevin Coleman, but overall they played really well. Then secondary-wise, man, did they start off badly. They gave up big plays. Zach Wilson really played well the first half. I was shocked, Mike, at the lack of pressure. That just floored me. I was very surprised. But then they disguised well, and they forced him in a bad place in the second half, and he really pressed.
You're right. The first half, I mean, it was a shootout back and forth, and
couldn't
get a stop. Couldn't get a stop. And then the third quarter, of course, you can't really say the defense played better. They weren't on the field at all. It wasn't until the fourth quarter that Epps had that interception that really kind of finally, I was watching the game with my father. There's like 6 minutes left. I said, if the Jets score here, it's a one-score game. And with this defense, the way they're playing today, I didn't feel comfortable or confident at all. But They got that interception, and Epps is a guy who, has made some plays, man.
Oh, no doubt. This Marcus Epps, what a story he's been. Former Viking, doing a good job. He may figure in as a starter next year. Who knows with the two starters now on expiring contracts. And also, I do want to mention Zach McPherson, his best game as an Eagle, did a good job after Nelson got hurt. He's their top backup outside corner. They don't have anybody else. This is a problem. The personnel department's had a good offseason, but that was a mistake, not getting a veteran corner to play on the outside as for depth. We're just talking about as a backup. But they've gotten away with it this season, and McPherson got thrown in there and did a much better job than the other games he was in.
Yeah, and then you mentioned, they lost Steve Nelson. I guess he's going to be back. Slay's been outstanding. I mean, this offseason, we kept talking about how bad the corner situation was going to be because, Slay was coming off of an up-and-down year. He's been excellent. Nelson's really kind of helped solidified the other side, and they drafted, McPherson. And I actually brought this up, I think, earlier to Andrew. How has he actually played? And you just kind of said, hey, he's not hurting them when he actually goes into the game. So the secondary has kind of turned into a surprise for this team.
It has. Now, look, you're playing the Jets. They got off to a terrible start last week, as you said. High-score game. Defense, because of the special teams snafu. They had a short field. For the life of me, and I don't understand why Gannon didn't come after Zach Wilson. Now, he's disguised a lot in the second half, and Wilson was confused. But it was very disappointing with the lack of pressure in the first half, particularly with the blitz. They didn't really blitz very much. Not nearly as much as I thought they would, but nevertheless, they got the job done. They play the very aggressive Taylor Heineke this coming week. That will be more of a challenge because he is very aggressive and he's a sort of a gunslinger. That will be a fun matchup.
And then the last couple of weeks here, these linebackers, TJ Edwards got an extension. They obviously like him. They lost Taylor. They brought in Singleton, but this was a huge weak spot at the beginning of the year. Here we are at the bye week. How has the linebackers been this for this team?
Better. Look, they're better. TJ Edwards is better. Look, they had some runs, some missed tackles where Alex Singleton is his tackling machine. You know that. It was better. It was definitely better. It's never going to be great or elite because they don't have the type of players. They're holding their own. They've been better. They've definitely improved as the season has gone along, but they face Antonio Gibson, I mentioned earlier, for Washington, who's really coming on in the run game.
Should be interesting. Washington and Dallas this week. Obviously, you got I don't know. You think, Adam, it's far-fetched to say that Washington could sweep Dallas?
I mean, anything could happen, but I don't see that happening. Now, Dallas is not a great team. I don't know if they're as good as their 8-4 record would indicate. They've had some injuries. They're getting Cooper will play full-time. He didn't play full-time last week against the Orleans because he came off the COVID list and wasn't feeling well. Their offensive lines had some changes. They've not been good in the run game. Defensively, they've given up some plays. It's interesting. Trayvon Diggs is a very good football player. He's having a breakout season, but he can be beat, believe it or not. Now, I know the Eagles don't throw it a lot to the receivers, but I don't think Dallas is as good as their record would indicate. They're still the favorite, clearly. They've got a 2-game lead, but Washington and Dallas have not played yet, I don't think. So they look.
No,
like
they play. That's what I say. I
Yep.
bring this up, Adam, because if Washington was to win this week, okay, they
Mhm.
play this week and they win. If they play again in 3 weeks, if Washington won that game, Dallas plays Arizona. If they lost that game, they could play the Eagles at the end of the year. Now, if Eagles take care of business against Washington both times and the Giants, you could have a situation where the game in Week 18 would be for the division.
Yeah, I know. Strange things have happened. We saw this in 2008? Was it
2008? Yep.
Yeah, that I'll never forget being in the press box. Make sure you remind me to talk about that story. Moshe and I have some great stories about the craziness. No one believed it could happen. It was like dominoes. What had to happen for the Eagles
that
to
was
get
when
the
the
playoffs?
Raiders went across the country and beat Tampa Bay. That was Gruden's last game out there.
It was unbelievable. None of us thought when we got to the press box at Lincoln Financial Field it could happen. We all dismissed it. God, I mean, because the scenario, the playoff scenarios that the NFL sent out were so absurd for them to be able to get in, and they hit every one of them. I'm like, I give up. I don't doubt anything anymore. So.
Adam Kaplan, don't forget Inside the Birds podcast, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And, of course, they do the Inside the Birds pregame show every week on YouTube. Bye week this week, they'll be taking the bye with them. But all of the content will still be flowing over at InsideTheBirds.com and the Inside the Birds podcast.
Yes. Oh, one note on that. Jeff and I, we dropped a show this morning. It's the review of the first 3 quarters of the season, a preview of the final 4 of the offense. And our defensive show drops Monday morning at 6 a.m. Eastern. You'll love that one. We get through it. Every position, what we see, what we've heard, what we need to see, and we'll do that also for defense on Monday. And then we're working on Wednesday's content as we get into Washington week.
All right. Well, check that out, everybody. Make sure you subscribe to the Inside the Birds podcast. And, of course, Adam Kaplan here on Happy Hour Friday. Adam, take care, man.
You too. Thanks.
That's Adam Kaplan from InsideTheBirds.com. Him, Mosher, and DeCecco do a great job, of course, over at Inside the Birds. And they power our Football at 4 segment each and every day at 4 o'clock right here on the Sports Bash. And it's brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long at Wild Wild West, Tropicana, Harrah's Resort Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. I am Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. I hope you're enjoying your Happy Hour Friday as we take you along on the Friday edition. We got a lot of fun on the way. Happy Hour Friday. Pete Thompson. All right, we're going to go through our favorite HBO shows. You guys have been texting some in, but I'm going to invite you to text some more in if you're just joining the show. 609-403-0973. There's a new book called Tinderbox. It is the story of HBO. It's tremendous. James Andrew Miller is the author. If you're familiar with James Andrew Miller, he did the ESPN book. He did the HBO book. He's done other books on different shows. This one's all on the history of HBO. Your favorite HBO shows. Give me the pantheon in your mind of the best HBO shows. So Pete Thompson, I gave him a homework assignment on Tuesday with Thompson. Now it is Happy Hour Friday. And the Eagles have a bye week, so we figured, we'll have a little fun. We'll throw some shows back and forth. We'll discuss them. That's coming up in about 7 minutes from now. But first, I want to remind you, the Sports Bash, it's brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan. The all-new Matt Blatt Nissan is open on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township next to Home Depot. Online, mattblattnissan.com. Download the free mobile app in the Apple Store or Google Play. You got Flyers in Vegas tonight. You can listen to the game on your phone. That's a 10 o'clock puck drop. Tomorrow, we've got Army-Navy. Coverage starts at 2. Sixers-Warriors at 8:30. On Sunday, it's an NFL triple header. Dallas and Washington is our 1 o'clock game. Buffalo and Tampa is our 4 o'clock game. And the Sunday night football game is Bears and Packers here on 97.3 ESPN. That's all this weekend. And I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. All right, 4:30 Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. I am Mike Gill. You are out there. I am looking for your help. Your pantheon of the top HBO shows. We've got a lot of them throughout the day. Now, I gave Pete Thompson a homework assignment to give me his favorite HBO shows. So we're going to go through PT's favorite HBO shows, my favorites. And I have the list, my pantheon, his favorite HBO shows. We got them all here for you. There is the PT, little Texarkana REM bringing you back there, PT. I don't know if you can hear it or not.
I did not hear it, but I like REM, and I was just mentioning REM in school today, as a matter of fact. So that's one band I wish I had seen. I never did get to see REM.
All right, well, I played it for you.
Good. I like it.
So I was listening to a podcast this week, Pete Thompson. Okay?
Yes, sir.
And James Andrew Miller, the author, was the guest, and he wrote the book called Tinderbox. It's the history of HBO.
Okay.
And they are basically going back and forth with all the best shows. So I said to you on Tuesday, after listening to the podcast, that on Happy Hour Friday, there's no Eagles game this week. So it's a little lighter edition.
Yep.
Right? I gave you some homework to come up with the pantheon of your favorite HBO shows. Now, I got mine. You got yours. The listeners have been texting theirs in all day long. I'll keep them coming. 609-403-0973 and tell us your, favorite 3, 4, 5 HBO shows. And now Pete Thompson's got his. I got mine. So we're going to have a little fun and discuss.
Well, so let me say two things. One, when you told me the assignment, I was so excited about it that the minute we got off our segment on Tuesday, I literally started typing up, show prep, like a script, like of who they were. And two, you said 3, 4. Hey, there's 4 faces on Mount Rushmore. You only get 4 shows as your top 4 shows. You asked me for the Mount Rushmore. That's 4. There's not 5 presidents up there. I did have some honorable mentions. There's some that don't.
That's
quite
fine. I said to
cut.
the listeners.
Oh, sure. Okay.
If they want to give their top 3, 4, or 5.
I wanted to make sure I did it right here. I mean, God forbid we don't even start yet, and you're telling me I did it wrong.
Yeah. So best HBO shows of all time. Now, there's a lot of this is tough because there was comedies. I don't know if you included documentaries or real sports or comedy shows.
They're right. But if I did, I would have gone for things like From the Earth to the Moon, which was an old Tom Hanks documentary that was outstanding. That was on HBO.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
McGarry, who said he's a big HBO guy, was on earlier. He went with Succession, which is a current show.
Yeah, and Succession's really, really good. That is in my category of still have to see. I'll just preface my answers by saying still, and I know you want to kill me for this when I say this, but I have yet to watch. No, I started an episode of The Wire and wasn't able to get through the episode. I don't in the summertime.
What do you mean you weren't able to get through it?
I fell asleep. I started it too late.
Jeez.
Yeah, hey, that happens. I've never seen an episode of Oz. I've actually never seen an episode of Eastbound and Down. True Detective, when everybody lit up about season 1 of True Detective, I've never seen that. I wrote Succession looks good. I tried to watch a couple episodes of Veep, but it didn't stick. And no thank you on Game of Thrones. Those are all in my still have to see, or I've put them off to the side.
Okay. Well, Oz was my roommate in college. Watch Oz all the time when we were in college. I never really got into it. Veep I've never seen, although I've been told, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, that it's very, on the Seinfeld level there. It tries to go down that way. There's a couple others that you mentioned. I never saw Succession. I don't have HBO currently.
Right.
Because
Succession has Brian Cox in it. It's basically... I don't want to say Donald Trump, but it's basically like a industry mogul or a business mogul. That's Brian Cox, who was in the Born Identities, and you also hear him doing the McDonald's commercials sometimes. And he plays like the patriarch of this really dysfunctional but really wealthy family that are all trying to succeed or take over the throne from the top dog there, and there's all kinds of infighting and backfighting and all that. I again, it looks good. I haven't watched it, but it looks good.
All right. Now there's a couple in here. I didn't include this in mind, but I was a huge fan of Flight of the Conchords.
Yeah, no, you and I used to sing that song to each other. But
I
the truth
love
of it is I've never watched that show.
what?
I know the song. I've never watched the show.
You've never seen you've never seen Flight of the Conchords?
Not once.
I wonder how many people out there listening, because they're probably saying I've never seen it either or heard it. It was the two guys from New Zealand who they were just hilarious. Oh man.
You and me and you.
Yeah, the songs were great. Now, it didn't make my top 4.
Right.
Another show that I really liked was Hung. Did you ever see that?
I do remember Hung. Boy, I should have put that in my honorable mentions. I enjoyed Hung a lot. That was Thomas Jane, but the girl in Hung was really good. I mean, she always does such a great job of playing like that crazy girl.
Yeah.
What was her name again? Jane Addams is her name, and she was outstanding. You know?
Is that any relation to the Jack Adams Trophy winner?
I don't think so, sir. But yeah, Hung was only on for 3 seasons.
Yeah,
I watched a lot of that.
Yeah, I have one that's in my top 4 that I don't think no one has texted it in all day, and I don't think anybody else will have it. I'm just going to say that, all right?
Okay, is it 3 words in the title?
No.
Okay, I didn't remember what that one show was that you'd always wanted me to watch. Let's see here. I'm looking up real quickly, and that was on HBO. Yeah, the one I thought you were going to say it was John from Cincinnati, but I
never saw John from Cincinnati.
Oh, I thought you did.
No,
okay.
No. But somebody told me earlier. So we had a bunch of texts in earlier. The landscapers. Somebody texted earlier? Now, I've got a bunch of them that I got to pull up the text messages, but somebody actually texted me on my actual phone and said, "Oh, Leftovers." Have you seen Leftovers?
Nope, I have not.
All
American drama series, The Leftovers.
Yep.
3 seasons. Is it currently on?
I don't know, but all right. These are some of the texts I got from the listeners. Tales from the Crypt.
Oh,
Tales from the Crypt. Oz. Game of Thrones. Westworld.
Now, see, there's another one that I did watch in the beginning, and I stopped. I watched season 1. Season 1 of Westworld was outstanding. Season 2 of Westworld was slightly less, and then by the time it got to season 3, I was done. I had stopped. You know.
All right. By the way, Dave Weinberg just texted me. All right.
Mm-hmm.
His top HBO shows: 1, Boardwalk Empire.
Oh, very good.
2, True Detective.
Season 1.
3, Hung.
Oh, there you go. Thomas Jane playing
4,
Ray Drecker.
Now, I'm surprised because not many people even knew of Hung.
I did watch it. I forgot about it, to be honest with you.
4,
I watched it.
Found It Down.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Dave likes baseball.
And then his honorable mentions were Barry, Vice Principals, and John from Cincinnati.
Oh, there you go. There's John from Cincinnati. I watched an episode of Barry. I think maybe the premiere episode or something like that. But again, when I get in, I'm in school now, when I don't really watch anything during the school year, and then I let things build up, and then I go back and watch them. When I get the opportunity to just sort of binge watch them in the summertime.
Text message, hands down, Entourage, Arliss, True Detective Season 1, and Ballers.
There's 2. Oh, there's 3 that I didn't include in my list that I easily could have. Certainly Entourage. I watched every season of that, and I liked Vinny Chase, and I liked Johnny Drama and all that. I enjoyed Entourage, Sloan.
I thought Entourage,
I
thought Entourage really got repetitive towards the 4th season.
Oh, very much so. And they were running out of ideas. But I mean, Jeremy Piven's character alone was worth Entourage, Ari Gold. I mean, that's an iconic character they created there. And there was another one he said there. What was the other one that he threw in there? It was Entourage and
Arliss.
Oh, Arliss. I loved Arliss, man.
Yeah.
Robert Wool as Arliss. And then that was a very underrated Sandra Oh. She played his assistant, his uptight assistant. Of course, she was in Sideways. She also was on Grey's Anatomy. Sideways. If anybody brings effing Merlot, I'm out of here.
Yeah, Arliss. I loved Arliss. It didn't quite make. Now, did you put Gary Shandling?
No, and there's another one. God, I enjoyed the Gary Shandling show or the
Loved it.
Yeah,
Now,
I
the
mean,
book Tinderbox is the name of the book, by the way.
Okay,
You'll
Tinderbox.
probably want to read the book, right?
Yeah, yeah, it sounds
Because I
like
saw you put that picture of you reading today on Facebook.
pretty funny, right?
Yeah.
Um,
The book, apparently it's like 1,200 pages.
Okay, that's fine.
It's on the
Here it
history
is.
of,
Tinderbox, HBO's ruthless pursuit of new frontiers.
yes.
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
And it goes through, I mean, the history of like many of these shows, but like how they end up coming with the idea to do the 1 hour comedy specials and the concert specials and the, the real sports and like all that stuff, So, like back in the day when you'd go on like, Johnny Carson or
Right.
the late night talk shows, you were a comedian, you got like 3 minutes to do your act. Well, HBO said, well, what if we give you an hour? And that's how
right.
like the whole.
Now they did that. Now this is pretty interesting. The author of Tinderbox is a guy named James Andrew Miller.
I said that.
Yeah, but I didn't.
Any relation to Michael and Susan?
Miller? No. But of course I didn't listen to you. You might have said that, but listen,
I said I was listening to a podcast on the book on the history of HBO. The author is James Andrew Miller.
That part I missed. I just heard podcast history of HBO.
Tinderbox is the name of the book.
But my point is, yes, Tinderbox, HBO's ruthless pursuit of new frontiers.
Yeah.
My point is that the guy, his 2 other books
he wrote
are
the
books
ESPN
that
book.
I've read. The ESPN book, those guys have all the fun. That was a big one. And then I also read Live from New York, the complete uncensored history of Saturday Night Live as told by its stars, writers, and guests. So I've read both of those. So yeah,
he has a history of writing books. Like he wrote a book on Curb Your Enthusiasm, I think. I think he wrote a book like on a lot of the different shows.
This book hasn't even been out a month.
I know. Well, he's a guest on a podcast that I listen to a lot.
Okay.
He's like a regular sports media type of guest on like, the Sports Illustrated Media Pod or the Richard Deitch has his pod.
Oh, yeah. I read him on the Athletic.
All right, so Pete Thompson.
Yes, sir.
You're going to give your list. I'll give mine. We got people texting in. So you got your 4, right?
I got my 4. Yeah, and I had a couple honorable mentions too.
A couple honorable mentions is totally acceptable. I have the same. I got my 4. I got my honorable mentions. I'll solicit some more from the listeners. 609-403-0973. We'll take a quick break, and then we come back. We'll both give our 4, and we'll read off some of the listeners and all that good stuff. So stick around. It's Happy Hour Friday here on the Sports Bash, live on 97.3. You see now, if you're watching the show, we got the cool Happy Hour Friday graphic.
Yeah, heck yeah. And you know what I'm doing tonight, too? I mean, I don't know if we're mentioning that now or later, but I got a Screwball peanut butter whiskey event tonight.
Yeah, we're going to get to that on the other side. You know what I'm doing tonight, Pete Thompson?
What is that?
I'm watching Jeff Nadeau fight.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah,
Wow,
he's
good
fighting
luck, Jeff.
tonight. Tonight's the night of the fight.
Where at?
It's in West Virginia.
Well, you're not going there, obviously.
No,
you're streaming it or something like that?
Yeah, it's on pay-per-view.
Nice. Good for you.
We're having a little pay-per-view party. We're going to watch Jeff Nadeau.
Have some Shastas.
Possible.
Couple
All right, stick around. We're going to talk about what you're doing tonight.
Yes, sir.
I don't want to forget that because last week you had a blast. And
I had a good time. I really did. I'm into this stuff.
All right, stick around. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. All right, 4:48 on a Friday. Happy Hour Friday is here, everybody. Pete Thompson is here as well. We'll get back into our conversation. By the way, Dave Weinberg followed up by saying that, FYI, he's a huge HBO fan, and he could have listed at least 10 more shows. I probably should have had him on for this segment, considering I got this text message that said, what the heck has PT watched if he hasn't seen any of these shows that I mentioned?
Oh, no, I've watched a lot. And by the way, a lot of those shows, I almost want to redo my list after you mentioned some of the ones that I'd forgotten about that I enjoyed, like Entourage, for example. But I'll stick with my list. I'm okay with what I'm throwing out. I think if you had to pick four, these are a good four.
All right, Pete Thompson. These are, before we get to those, Pete Thompson is live again with our friends at Screwballs. So tell us a little bit more about what the PT's doing tonight, how the people can get involved, and a little bit about the taste, man. I want to hear more about the taste.
Yeah, listen, the taste is outstanding. It's peanut butter whiskey is what it is. And it's like got this mix of basically like sweet and savory, it's not just straight sweetness. I heard somebody last time say like, "Oh, I don't like peanut butter." Well, you'll like this. I mean, it has a smooth finish to it, and it doesn't really like knock you on your butt. It sort of sneaks up on you, but I enjoyed it very much. Tonight we are at Rack's Pub and Grill in Atco, where it's 286 White Horse Pike in Atco. Now, their happy hour is always right now, 3 to 6, both in the Atco and Williamstown location. We're going to be there tonight, 7 to 8. Rack's Pub and Grill. Come out, taste the Screwball peanut butter whiskey. The great thing is the people from Screwball have a bunch of like T-shirts and giveaways. All you have to do is try a shot of the Screwball. Boom, you get this outstanding T-shirt. I mean, and these aren't like crappy T-shirts, to be honest with you. They're really, really nice. I wanted one last week. They look so good. So we're there tonight, and we have all kinds of stuff. Like Leanne comes out with me from the 97.3 ESPN Prize Patrol, and we have a holiday theme going. So either Leanne or Lou was there last week from Screwball. They'll put reindeer antlers on their head, and then you have to do like a ring toss, and you throw these rings. They're inflatable, so you're not hitting them in the face at them. And if you get a couple of rings, then you win a prize. We got all kinds of stuff. We got New Jersey lottery tickets, we got Mac tickets, we got Wings. The Wings play tonight, by the way, and they're on TV. I see NBC Sports Philadelphia Plus, and the Flyers tickets is the big prize that we have now. Big prize. Flyers have been struggling, but as I told you, those Flyers tickets are against Ottawa, and Ottawa only has they're just as bad, or if not as dysfunctional as the Flyers. So if you're going to win Flyers tickets, that's the game you want to win for. We are at Rack's Pub tonight in Atco, and we're at Roger Wilco in Pennsauken tomorrow, Mike.
Yeah, Roger Wilco, Pennsauken. I love the Roger Wilcos. What a selection for someone like me who looks for, some kind of crafty beers. Those like deep cuts is what I would say. And that's noon to 1 tomorrow. There's a tasting from 11 to 1. So Pete Thompson at Rack's Pub out on the White Horse Pike in Atco. Tomorrow, Roger Wilco in Pennsauken. So the PT with Screwball is everywhere. I love the peanut butter whiskey, man. That will be a staple in our New Year's Eve party for 2020.
I'm getting ready to mix it with something. I mean, so far, all I've ever done is shoot it straight, and it's smooth. But like, I'd like
to banana liqueur, PT.
I've also heard peanut butter and jelly. You could get it with like some sort of Chambord or something like that. I've heard chocolate and peanut butter. Get it with like a Godiva liqueur or something like that. Make yourself a little Reese's peanut butter cup, or a Screwball peanut butter cup would probably be a better way to name that. But
all right, yeah. Pete Thompson's 4 best favorite HBO shows are.
My Mount Rushmore of HBO shows are: number 4, 6 Feet Under, 2001 to 2005. That was Alan Ball, who tackled mortality, death, and basically made stars out of everybody in the cast. Michael C. Hall, who went on to Dexter, Peter Krause, Francis Conroy, Lauren Ambrose. A lot of people forget that the father in the family, who wasn't in there every week, but stole scenes every time he was in it, was Richard Jenkins, who people know from Step Brothers and other great movies. But yeah, it was outstanding. It had a bunch of Emmys. It took home 9. And the way they finished it, I don't want to ruin it if you haven't watched it, but the way they finished it was pretty epic as well. So that's my number 4. My number 3 is Curb. Curb Your Enthusiasm. Can't believe, it started in 2000, Mike Gill. And the fact that 21 years later, we're still talking about Curb. And, you know, to the people that don't really get it, they just think Curb is sort of like a copy of like Seinfeld or something like that. But the reality of it is it's so much more than that. I mean, the fact that there's so much loose dialogue and the way Larry David does that show, which is he sort of sets up a structure, but it's not all scripted. It's sort of like, this is the scenario, let's roll camera and then let's see what happens. And, you know, I mean, the people that have blown up from it, Jeff Garland, and geez, I can't turn on my TV right now and not see JB Smooth. I mean, Caesar, Susie Essman, Cheryl Hines, you know, I mean, just the funny lines out of that, you know, the guy sitting there at the dinner table saying, I'm a survivor, because he's from the show CBS Survivor. And the Holocaust guy's like, no, I'm a survivor, you know, and they're arguing. I love that stuff. Curb's my 3. I share Dave Weinberg's love for Boardwalk Empire. I thought that was an outstanding show. Terrence Winter put that out. It was set in Atlantic City. Very first shot of that show was Hamilton. That was the countryside. Steve Buscemi was great as Nucky Thompson. No relation, not Nucky Johnson, but yeah, based on the Nelson Johnson books that were just outstanding. I'm a big fan of Boardwalk Empire. That only ran for 4 seasons. And then, of course, my number 1. This is a Mount Rushmore. Of course it has to be The Sopranos. Am I mad that, you know, the ending was controversial? Well, sure. I thought something was wrong with my cable that night. But, I mean, just, you know, you pick it. Like, you know, Carmela's or he's hiding the money in the duck feed or, you know, outside by the pool. And then she finds it and she takes a stack of money just so she knows that he knows that she knows what's going on, right? They go on a college visit with Meadow and Tony has a little side job that he's got to do. I mean, all the things there. Pio Mine. That was the name of the horse, Pio Mine. You know, the Ralph Ciprietto, right? Played memorably by Joey Pantaleone, you know, Pantaleano, whatever the heck the guy's. I mean,
Joey Pants.
Yeah, just all that stuff. I mean, Sopranos to me is the most iconic HBO show of all time.
Now, what do you think of Dave Weinberg, who said he's a huge HBO fan? He's Mount Rushmore had no Sopranos, and neither did his honorable mentions.
Yeah, but it did have Boardwalk Empire. I find interesting, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, but you just said Sopranos number 1. It has to be everywhere. He didn't even list it among his honorable mentions.
I find that very curious, especially since like a lot of the people from Sopranos, you know, like Vince Van Patten came over and directed episodes of Boardwalk Empire. You know, I think the style was sort of, it is in a way you could almost call it the mob in the 20s, you know, the way Nucky was running things. But, yeah, so, I'm surprised by that. That's my 4. Oh, and my honorable mentions, I had put in True Blood, which was also an Alan Ball vehicle, and my girlfriend Susan and I really enjoyed that very, very much. Anna Paquin, Suke, you know, and then Alexander Skarsgård, Stephen Moyer. Look, Sam Trammell was great, Carrie Preston. I mean, you name it. They were all, you know, people who you never heard of. Nobody knew who Joe Manganiello was. And then he became this sex symbol out of True Blood. Or Deborah Ann Wool played the redhead, I forget her character's name, but she was in, again, so if I had to pick an Alan Ball one, I picked 6 Feet Under over True Blood, but they both were very, very good. And I'd be remiss. Now, I heard this remake is terrible, so I'm not watching the remake. But yeah, I watched Sex in the City. I mean, all the girls were hot. They were talking about sex. I mean, come on. I'd be a dummy if I wasn't watching that show. It was revolutionary at the time. Carrie, Miranda, Charlotte, and Samantha. We just lost Willie Garson, the actor that played Sanford. He just passed away, sadly. You know who else passed away? I don't want to bring the segment down, but did you know that Michael Nesmith from the Monkees passed away today?
I didn't.
Yeah, so now we're down, and now there is one. Mickey Dolenz is the only monkey left.
All right, Pete Thompson.
Sorry,
here we go.
Sorry to bring you down there.
Here's my. I used to watch the Monkees every day before my Little League game when I was like 10.
It's the Monkees. I can't wait to hear this one that's on there that you think nobody would expect.
Yeah, nobody's mentioned it yet. No one's texted it in yet, by the way, either. All right, my number 4 is The Sopranos. I was a big Sopranos fan, but I do think later on in the series, it did kind of got a little off. The 8 years, James Gandolfini was great. The book actually talks about how Gandolfini really wrestled with, you know, separating his life. They really think this character that he played really ruined a lot of his real life. That he had to play this, you know, Anthony Soprano, loving father, son, husband, and obviously he is the a psychopath, really. So
Pretty much.
Great show, number 4, but I thought it was a couple slow seasons there towards the end. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Number 3, Big Love.
Oh yeah, you loved Big Love.
I
Now, see,
absolutely.
I have not seen an episode of it, so I'll have to put that on my list.
Are you kidding me?
I have never seen an episode of Big Love.
All right,
I know,
Big
I
Love.
understand the premise, haven't seen it.
Big Love, I absolutely love. And the thing about Big Love was it never really mattered, like, what was going on in the show. It was his relationship with his 3 wives, which was really the story.
And you had Jeannie Triplehorn, Chloe Savigny, and who was the third one?
Jennifer Goodwin.
Oh, Jennifer Goodwin. Right.
And they were all married to Bill Paxton.
Yeah,
and they live in
R.I.P.
Utah.
Bill Paxton,
And Chloe Savigny's family is like the head of the polygamist. And that's one of his wives. The other 2 wives were not polygamists when they met. He just kind of talked them into this whole thing, right?
Now, is that the one that nobody mentioned?
Nobody has mentioned Big Love, period.
Yeah.
I loved that show. It was awesome. It was so good. Number 2 for me is Curb, and obviously number 1 is The Wire. The Wire, by the way.
Sure. I mean, and look, I get it. I just haven't got to it yet, but I get it.
There
will be a period of time where I sit down and watch it straight through.
Pete Thompson, the other night I was going through Netflix. I couldn't find anything.
There's another guy that died, Omar from The Wire,
yes.
the guy that played him.
I went through Netflix. I couldn't find anything to start. I literally said, I'm just going to watch The Wire again.
I've done that before.
Couple honorable mentions. I'm running out of time, Pete Thompson. We ran a little late here.
Sorry.
Hung, Arliss, Flight of the Conchords, The Larry Sanders Show. They're my honorable mentions.
Love it, baby.
All right, Peter.
Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, that was a long version of Happy Hour Friday with Pete Thompson. I got to roll. We got Casey Joyner coming up for One Thought on every game. We'll hit that. We'll get back to that. We'll talk to Pete on Tuesday. Hope you all are enjoying our list of HBO's favorite shows right there on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. When we come back, it will be Casey Joyner here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN with One Thought on every game, week 14. One Thought every game, week 14. Coming up next with Casey Joyner from The Athletic and the Philadelphia Inquirer here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. And, of course, the free mobile app. You can download the app in the Apple Store or Google Play. When we return, we ran a little long. We apologize, but we were having a little fun on Happy Hour Friday with that list of our favorite shows there. Casey with One Thought every game, including what the game meant last night, because it did have an impact on both playoff races. That's next. 507 Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Casey Joyner's got one thought on every NFL game, which, by the way, week 14, it's the last week of the byes. Quick NBA news before we get to Casey. ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski, along with Zach Lowe, reporting Philadelphia's trade conversations on Ben Simmons are gathering momentum. More teams are now engaged. More 2- and 3-way deal structure talks going on as the Sixers try to land a top 25 player for Ben Simmons. So it sounds as if teams, when we talked about this, they look at their teams and say, what we have isn't what we had hoped for. How do we make what we have better? By not playing, he may have actually helped his own value. All right, week 14 is here. One thought every game. Couple Eagles thoughts. They beat the Jets last week. We talked earlier in the week about Minshew and Hurts. The Eagles at the bye week here. You had your power rankings out, Casey Joyner, and you at the bye week seemed pretty impressed by where this Philadelphia team is, and that kind of was shown where you had them in your power rankings this week.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. When I put these together, as I mentioned in the article, a lot of times power rankings, I've taken part in a lot of power rankings over the years, and a lot of times they're just popularity contests. Hey, who do you think would be the better team? And it really doesn't take into account any factors, just what you happen to think. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to take a list of 5 key metrics, and I'm going to see how teams have done in those metrics over the course of the year and over the course of the last 4 weeks, try to get a better measure of these things. So I really didn't have any idea where the Eagles were ranked. I could see them being high on the list, low on the list. They got a number 11. I was surprised that they were ranked quite that high. I mean, and that takes into account their record too. So, I mean, that was one of the key metrics there. So to be at 11 and to be not far away from the top 10, because they were in that article, it was a 1 to 100 scale, and they got a power ranking of 62, a power score, what I call it. And the Bengals were 10th at 66. So the Eagles are not far behind from being a top 10 team in the league.
So what does that say about where they are and who they are right now? If you're saying, hey, I know this is a league of parity, but they're right on the fringe of being one of the top 10 teams in the league.
Yeah, it does. And it says that, I mean, your record is what you they will Parcells saying you are what your record says you are. You got there's obviously that matters, but the idea that, and that's what I was trying to get with the articles, to say, hey, look, how are teams actually playing? Because I want to spin this thing forward. The article covers some gambling things too, so it's partly from that perspective. But I like to look at it from an NFL perspective too, is where are you now and where might you be over the course of the rest of the season? So that's why people are thinking, hey, the Eagles season is done. It's like, no, not they keep playing the way that they have, because this does, like I said, put a lot of weight on the last 4 weeks. It says that this is a team that can still win plenty of games, and I think a team is still a playoff contender. I don't think people should write that off just yet, just because of that Giants loss.
Well, no, I mean, they beat the Jets. That kind of put them. The Giants loss would have had them in. The Jets loss kept them in. Now, the Vikings win last night, helped them out and really added, Casey, we talked about this earlier, depending on what this, we'll go through the schedule, one thought every game, but sure, we could have 5 or 6 teams in the NFC that are 6 and 7 at the end of this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where you're going to have to win tiebreakers. And that's why the Eagles really just can't afford to lose another NFC game. I mean, losing that Giants game was a tough game. And you're going to have to get to the tiebreakers there. Having said that, I keep Minnesota last night, hey, fine. As their coach said, the first half they could beat anybody in the league, and the second half they couldn't beat anybody. It's like that's who they are. I'm not too worried about them. Washington is a good team, but it has flaws as well. That's right. That's the thing that stood out about this is the teams that are in front of them on that list. Just go over a couple of the other teams. I mean, Arizona's in front of them, obviously. Green Bay's in front of them, obviously. San Francisco actually is in front of them. Tampa. And then that's it. That's all in the NFC. I mean, most of the teams in the top 10 are AFC teams. So you're talking the Eagles are at that level. Mind you, to be fair, the Cowboys were 12th at 61. Washington was 13th at 57. So the Eagles are right there. But that says where they are in this division. They can keep up with anybody in this division. So if they get on the run that they're capable of doing, I still don't think the NFC East is out of the question. Tough, but not impossible.
Yeah, we'll talk about some scenarios here. Let's get one thought every game. Last night, Pittsburgh, they're down 29-0. They come all the way back, but they come up short. 6-1. Give me a thought on what it did for them.
It showed. Been talking the last few weeks that is the team, are they? I don't want to say quitting on the coach, but it's a team. It's clear if a team doesn't believe what the coach is selling, is not buying what the coach is selling. And I wondered that about the Steelers for a time, but that they did what they did in the second half shows they still believe in Tomlin and his ability to get this team where it needs to be. They just don't have enough talent. That was more about talent in that game, and it wasn't anything else, because the Steelers they've got too many flaws.
All right, one thought every game, Baltimore, Cleveland, both teams need this one. Baltimore, if they lose this, they're going to be it's going to be in panic mode for Charm City. Cleveland needs this to stay. I mean, they're one of those 6-6 teams in the AFC.
They are in Cleveland. I mean, Anthony Schwartz is out. Harrison Bryant's out. And I mean, they just lost their right tackle. They're very banged up. Baltimore, I'm curious to see if Baltimore gets back to running the ball like they should, because if they do run the ball like they should, then they're a team that's going to win. And I think they will in this game, because the Browns have allowed 500 rushing yards in the past 3 games. But having said that, I think Baltimore is still, they're leaning too heavily on the pass, going to cost them down the road, but I don't think it'll cost them this week.
All right, one thought every game, Jacksonville at Tennessee. Tennessee needs this. They're in a free fall, 8-4, though. Can they hang on?
Jacksonville ranked 32nd in those power rankings. Dead last. They've allowed 575 rushing yards in the past 4 games. They only have 6 takeaways this whole year, and 3 of them came in that Buffalo upset. The Jaguars have only thrown for 152 or fewer net passing yards in 4 of the past 5 games. You got James Robinson hurt. I just think it's just way too much. And like I said, they're 32nd already. Tennessee wins that handily.
All right, Vegas, Kansas City. Outside shot at the division still. Vegas still in the playoff mix. Kansas City trying to keep in play for the number 1 seed.
Raiders, I mean, they started off well under the interim coach, but they've lost 4 out of 5. The offense have been the primary issue. They scored 16 or fewer points in 4 of the past 5 games. And Kansas City's defense has been superb recently. They ranked 3rd in defensive expected points added since week 10, racked up 10 takeaways. I think they're doing a lot of things well, in Las Vegas isn't. I'll take the Chiefs.
All right, one thought every game. New Orleans is getting some pieces back, going to the Jets, who obviously have all sorts of problems. If New Orleans wins, they're one of those 6-7 teams.
They should, and I mean, New York. I talk about Pittsburgh being talent challenged. New York is talent challenged on both sides of the ball. Injuries have wrecked their defense. They've got some of the worst pass defense metrics in the league. I don't trust Taysom Hill's ability to throw the ball, but I mean, the Jets just gave up 185 rushing yards to the Eagles, and the Saints, they're not quite Eagles level, but they're pretty darn close. And Kamara's going to be a full go this week. I'll take the Saints.
All right, this is the big one in the NFC East: Dallas and Washington. Washington's been the hottest team in the conference. Dallas has been up and down for about a month now.
They have. Don't sell. I talk about Philadelphia being able to win the NFC East. Don't sell Washington's chances short for winning the East, because they've won 4 straight games. They still have 2 divisional games against Dallas, obviously in this one, and they have a 14% chance to win the division per the New York Times playoff predictor model. Their run game's been a lot better. Antonio Gibson's been great after he took that week. They had the bye week to heal up his shin. Dallas has had trouble moving the ball on the ground. Washington has given up 76 or fewer rushing yards in 3 of the past 4. You've got Zeke hurt. You've got Pollard hurt. Add in the Cowboys' pass coverage issues, and I think Washington's actually going to win this.
All right, that would be interesting, because if Washington wins, they obviously pull ahead or stay ahead in the wild card race. It does bring Dallas back to the pack a little. Washington and Dallas play in 3 weeks. Washington and Philly play next week. Atlanta and Carolina. Someone's going to win. Someone's going to be 6-7 here.
Can you believe that for these 2 teams? I mean, there have been times when they've been among the worst teams in the league. I mean, they benched Cam Newton. They fired Joe Brady did, the Carolina Panthers. But Atlanta's offense ranks dead last in offensive expected points added since week 10. I know they get Cordell Patterson back, but I still like Carolina's offense better. I think they have more playmakers, and Atlanta's just their offense being stuck in neutral like they are. I think and Carolina's got a better defense still. I'll take them.
All right, one thought every game: Seattle and Houston. I guess if Seattle can win this, they stay involved for another week, and Houston's just looking at the finish line here saying, yeah, they really gave us an extra week this year.
Yeah, and I saw somebody post on Twitter where they went to that New York Times playoff predictor and gave Seattle all 5, all the rest of the wins, and there's still like a small percentage chance they make the playoffs. Like that kind of doesn't speak well for the NFL that this team should be there. But Houston's given up 150 more rushing yards on the ground, 5 of the past 7. Their offense is net. They haven't had 107 or more net passing yards since week 9. They're going back to Davis Mills. You know what I think of him, so I'm taking Seattle.
All right. One thought every game. Detroit, Denver. Obviously, Detroit got their win last week. Denver still in the playoff mix. A win here would really make it interesting.
Detroit actually literally is still in the playoff hunt. Fox Sports did a post on their Twitter feed yesterday, and they said there's a 2 in 1 trillion chance that they make the playoffs. That literally they've run the numbers. It's literally that. It's like, okay, there's still a chance, but look, they're playing really. They've been playing really well. I like their fire. I like their spirit. You're missing Swift. You're missing Williams. Denver's defense is playing very well. The Broncos held the Chiefs, Chargers, and Cowboys to 51 points in those matchups over the past month. I just don't think Detroit's going to firepower. I'll take Denver.
All right. One thought every game. Giants, Chargers at home. They need this. They're 7-5. They're currently the 5 seed in the AFC, and they have an outside shot. I don't want to say outside. They're still in play. They've already beaten Kansas City once.
They have, and the problem for the Chargers, Allen's out, it looks like, with COVID. And Mike Williams, it looked early in the week like Williams is going to be out and Allen is going to be in. Now it's the other way around. Mike Williams is in. It looks like Keenan Allen is out. So that's a problem for them because Williams is a big play guy, but he isn't a chain mover. Having said that, I mean, the Giants just have all kinds of issues. It looks like Glenn is going to be the quarterback, but it's not impossible that Fromm ends up playing in this game. All the receivers are banged up. Barkley's just not what he was. He's playing better, but he's not what he was. And the Chargers are able to get into shootouts, and they do very well in them. They're 4-1 in shootouts this year. Actually, they're 6-1. They're 4-1 in shootouts, and they're 6-1 whenever they score 24 more points. I still think they have enough firepower to put up points, and Giants don't. So I'll take LA.
All right. One thought every game. San Fran, Cincinnati. This is a big one for both conference playoffs. So you see an AFC NFC matchup this late in the season. San Fran's the current 7. Cincinnati needs this as well.
They do. I won't read too much into the loss against Seattle last week. I picked San Francisco for the win that game, but the 49ers are to, or the Seahawks are to them, but Ohio State was to Michigan until this year because the Seattle's won 15 out of 17 in that series. So that's just, I don't lean too much into that. I don't like the Seattle or San Francisco probably won't have Eli Mitchell. But you've got Hasty and you've got Jeff Wilson. That's a good 1-2 combination. You can get ahead with that. Cincinnati may not have Mixon. The coach has said today that Mixon is battling illness, and he thinks it's going to be a game-time decision. Cincinnati is also very up or down, and San Francisco plays quite well on the road. They're 4-2. I like San Francisco in this one.
All right. That would be bad for Philadelphia. One thought every game. I mean, Buffalo, if they lose this game, there's a chance they don't make the playoffs. Who would have thought that a couple of weeks ago? And Tampa needs this to stay in play for the number 1 seed.
Buffalo, that New England loss, when you see how their coach, how mad he was, how mad their players are, I think there's some self-doubt creeping into the locker room that they're like, hey, we're better than this. It's like, yeah, but if you don't prove it on the field, it doesn't matter. You're going up against Tampa. Tampa's got all their firepower on offense. Plus, look, they've got their secondaries back. Sean Murphy-Bunting, Jamel Dean, Carlton Davis, they're all back. They haven't been playing that well of late, but their history says they should get back up to speed. I look at that and say, okay, Tre'Davious White is out, and now you're going to try and go toe-to-toe with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Gronk. I think it's a shootout game, and I've got Tampa by a small amount, but I still think I would take them is 6 out of 10 times in this one.
All right. One thought every game. Chicago, Green Bay. Rodgers told the Bears he owns them. I would imagine that he's going to hold that promise.
I think so. They've lost 6 of the last 7. Chicago has. But I mean, look, the Bears lost all those games, but they lost to Green Bay, Tampa Bay, San Francisco, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Arizona. That's a tough slate, but it does show that when they play really good teams, they're just not good enough. You give them Detroit, they can keep up. You give them some mediocre teams, you can keep up. You give them a tough team, they can't. Jair Alexander might come back this week. You've got Aaron Jones now and A.J. Dillon. You start adding that together, it's just too much talent in Green Bay. I'll take the Packers.
All right. And then, of course, the Monday night game this week. We'll take a look deeper on Monday. It's L.A., Arizona, a big one in the West. And obviously in the wild card, if the Rams lose, they would fall back in the wild card mix. If they win, I guess they have an outside shot to kind of make it interesting in the West. But, wow, week 14, here we are. That Washington-Dallas game, I threw this scenario out earlier, Casey. You like Washington this week, okay?
Yeah.
So if Washington swept Dallas, Dallas lost to Arizona, and they beat the Giants, and the Eagles swept their 3, those 2 teams would be playing in week 18 for the division.
I've been thinking that that division game, that game between Dallas and Philly week 18, I've been thinking that might decide the division. I did wrote an article for the Inquirer a couple weeks ago. I thought that Philadelphia would win last week and all that, but I didn't think Dallas would lose to the Raiders. There's different ways to get there, and you got to win tiebreakers. But I very much think the Cowboys are a flawed team right now. They've got coverage issues. I mean, everybody talks about their interceptions, and that's great. And Diggs just got another one, but they haven't been getting as many interceptions of late, and their coverage metrics are just terrible. They're bad. And I've talked many times of the years. Best offenses in the league are 50-50 props when you get into shootout games. And if you have a bad defense, they're in even worse. So I think Washington will beat them at least one. I think Philadelphia could beat them one. I think Dallas, I don't think it's a shoe-in that Dallas wins the division. And I think Philadelphia's got a better shot. That's why if they play to their talent level, that's the key. They play to their talent level, I think they can win the thing.
All right, he's Casey Joyner from The Athletic and the Philadelphia Inquirer at KC Joyner TFS on Twitter. And, of course, he'll be back on Monday with one thought on every Week 14 game, and that'll be right here on the Sports Bash. Casey, enjoy all the football, man.
Appreciate it.
All right, that's Casey Joyner here on the Sports Bash Happy Hour Friday edition with you. And, of course, Casey Joyner on this Friday, he is brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook inside Resorts Hotel Casino in Atlantic City. I am Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash Live, taking you till 6. When we come back, Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, the path for Philadelphia, and some other NFL tidbits you're going to want to stick around for. We told you the news on Ben Simmons. The Philadelphia 76ers have had trade conversations on Simmons in recent days, gaining much more momentum, more teams engaged, more 2- and 3-way deal structures as they try to get a top 25 player. That's from Woj over at ESPN. I am Mike Gill. When we come back, the Sports Bash, Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, NFL. Don't go away. Game night tonight. Kevin Durso talks a little Flyers and their 10-game losing streak. Vikings have a slim little lead. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, he's their NFL writer. The Vikings have a slim little lead on tiebreakers over the Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to talk a little bit about all the Eagles scenarios. You wrote a good piece over at CBSSports.com. All right, so the Eagles have a bye this week, but the playoffs can still be affected even though they do not play. So let's kind of dive in a little bit here, Jeff, at some of the scenarios and some of the situations for Philadelphia and what could happen for them. Let's start with last night, with the fact that the Vikings won, and that actually pushed them over Philadelphia. So the Vikings have now kind of entered themselves as the fourth team in this thing. It looked like it was Washington, Philadelphia, San Francisco this weekend. Well, Minnesota took care of their business. So now I guess you got to say they're in this thing.
Yeah, they definitely are. I mean, they leapfrog the Eagles. Here's the problem with the Vikings. They have a really good win against the Green Bay Packers and a really bad loss against the Detroit Lions. And they play all these one-score games. I know you got to kind of throw divisional games out the window, but you should be able to beat the Bears. You should be able to beat the Lions. I mean, the Vikings, it's going to be interesting to see what they do these final 4 games moving forward, because I feel like they're a team that they're probably going to end up 8-9 just based on how they are. Like last night, they looked really, really good in the first half. And Mike Zimmer's right. That first half, they could probably beat anybody in the league. But then the second half, it's like he said, anybody could beat them in the league. And they proved that 4 or 5 days ago when they lost to Detroit. So it's hard to get a grasp on this Vikings team. I would say they're in it based on record and because they are ahead of Philadelphia, but I don't know. Even with that big win last night, they got to do a lot to, I think, leapfrog San Francisco, to leapfrog Washington, and leapfrog Phil. They got to hope Washington and Philadelphia split. I'll say that.
All right, so let's talk about that. Who is Philly currently chasing right now? What are you watching this weekend if you're an Eagles fan? Who should they keep their eye on?
This is funny, Mike. So the game I got assigned to for CBS this week is 49ers-Bengals, and there's a lot of rooting interest for the Eagles in that game.
Huge rooting. Other than Dallas, Washington, this is the game of the weekend for Eagles fans.
Exactly, because if the 49ers lose, all of a sudden they're 6-7, and the Eagles need the 49ers to lose. They need to be ahead of the 49ers at season's end because the 49ers own the crucial head-to-head tiebreaker. Don't even look at conference record or any of that because they played each other. The head-to-head tiebreaker belongs to the San Francisco 49ers. So you got to pass them. You have to make sure whether you're 9-8 or you're 8-9, that they cannot have the same amount of wins as you. So this Cincinnati game is huge. You got to be a Cincinnati Bengals fan if you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan this weekend.
So obviously you're rooting this weekend for, it sounds like Dallas against Washington and Cincinnati against San Francisco. Last week, you got a lot of things go your way. This week started off with something not going your way with Minnesota winning that game against Pittsburgh. So give us kind of the blueprint for reaching the postseason for Philadelphia. What are some of the things that need to happen for them? And I guess a lot of it is predicated, too, on some of the stuff that goes on around them because, of course, they're losing some tiebreakers.
Well, in my opinion, the Eagles control their own destiny here. And here's how they do that. Sweep the Washington football team. Sweep that football team. Because if you do that, you're going to be, say Washington loses to Dallas this week. Now remember, you got to root for that too. You're going to be 6-7. You sweep them, boom. You're 2 games ahead of them. And you got to remember, San Francisco and Minnesota are in this. That probably helps out San Francisco. But again, they got a tough schedule, with the Titans and all that kind of. I mean, they got a couple easy games in there too. But, 49ers got a couple tough games in there, Titans and the Rams. So that gets you at 8. Again, not saying the Giants is guaranteed win, but you should beat that football team. And again, they lost to them earlier, but you should beat that football team. So there's 9 wins right there. 9 should get them in. I think 9 will be enough.
Well, I think 9's getting somebody in.
Exactly. Yeah. Where there's a 6 or 7 seed, I agree with you, Mike. I think 9 is the blueprint. So find a way to get the 9. So if you win your next 3 games, that gets you a 9.
Oh, I think,
Plain simple.
I think, Jeff, the 6 seed will get 9. I think the 7 seed will have 8. So I think if you can get to 8, if somebody between Minnesota, Washington, Philadelphia, San Francisco, one gets to 9, somebody gets to 8, and then tiebreakers come into play, and then that's where it could be a mess for Philadelphia because evidently Minnesota owns the tiebreaker over Philadelphia. We already know San Francisco. We already know San Francisco owns the tiebreaker over Philadelphia. and then the tie-breaking situation with Washington will still play out.
What sucks about this whole thing is, Mike, the Eagles played the AFC West this year and went 1-3 against them. So really, in most years, this doesn't hurt them. But because they lost to San Francisco and because Minnesota owns the common record tiebreaker over or the common game tiebreaker over Philadelphia right now, the Eagles got to get a better conference record than Minnesota. How do they do that? Simple. Win your next 4 games. That's how you get the better conference record than them, because Minnesota already's got bad conference losses to begin with.
Well, this thing to me is very interesting, Jeff, because the way the NFL has made the schedules, essentially, who's the best team in the NFC East is going to make the playoffs. I mean, Dallas, if they're the best team in the NFC East, they are going to win the division going away. If Washington is the best team in the NFC East, they could win the division if they take care of their business. And if Philadelphia is the best team in the NFC East, they're going to make the playoffs if they basically, if Philadelphia goes 3-1, they're probably going to get in.
Yeah, exactly. And even if Washington wins this week, like 3-1 is probably going to get them in. Now, this is what I recommend. Dallas beats them, and they kind of live up to Mike McCarthy's guarantee that we're going to win this game. And I think that fired up Washington a bit. I think Washington's going to keep this game close. I just think Dallas has too much firepower for them. It's funny because I think Washington can beat them. I really do. But for the Eagles' sake, they beat Dallas.
What Washington does well right now, Jeff, is what Dallas struggles with is Washington has ripped the playbook out of Philadelphia's hands and said, we're going to run the ball. So if they take Antonio Gibson and just run it at Dallas, that's how you're in that game, and that's how you beat them.
Yeah, and you know what? That's why I think Dallas kind of overlooks Washington. And I'm saying they're fans. They overlook Washington. They overlook Philadelphia. Well, we killed the Eagles. Yeah, you did. Guess what? The Eagles don't do what they do now. They just pound the football down your throat and say, stop it. And we know Dallas can't do that. So that's why I think the Eagles will have a chance in that second game.
What's the situation with Pollard? I mean, he might be done for the year for Dallas.
Yeah, it's crazy. And, they're saying Ezekiel Elliott's going to be like 100%. But, my colleague Patrick Walker said Dallas is mismanaging this Ezekiel Elliott injury, and they kind of need to give him a day off or two, like week off. But they can't because of what's happening with Tony Pollard right now. It feels like Washington and Philadelphia are starting to get a little bit healthier. I know Washington's really beat up, but Dallas is starting to get banged up at the worst part.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens for Philadelphia with Brandon Brooks, too. They've been really quiet about him. They said they're not going to provide any updates until after the bye week, but will he be ready to go for these last 4 games? You plug Brandon Brooks into that offensive line, and it makes a very good offensive line even better, potentially.
And they kind of need him based on how this Jason Kelce thing is, because you don't have to switch that many people around. All of a sudden, Landon Dickerson can go center if he wants, or you can go to Nate Herbig at left guard. Yeah. It's going to be interesting. But if Brandon Brooks doesn't come back after the bye week, I don't think he's coming back at all. I think he's playing his last snap in an Eagles uniform.
Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports. Last night, you tweeted something that I think is interesting. Mike Tomlin, obviously, they've only had 3 coaches in Pittsburgh. If they don't make the playoffs this year, does this feel like an Andy Reid in Pittsburgh situation where they just say, you know what? By no fault of your own, it just might be time for us to do something here. Or do the Steelers just say, look, this has been our guy. We don't change coaches. He is going to help take us, because they're going to have to transition to a new quarterback. That's the thing here now. It's time that they had, although last night, Roethlisberger brought them back into that game, but I don't think he's back next year, but is Mike Tomlin.
I would say he's back just because it's the Steelers. I feel like if this was any other franchise, it would be a no. But I think Mike Tomlin obviously gets benefit of the doubt from the Roonies because, look, Bill Cowher should have been fired at least 2 or 3 times. And, they kept him around. And that's just what they do. They keep coaches. And, I think if Mike Tomlin never leaves the Steelers, he'll leave on his own volition at this point. This is how I look at this.
Does he want a new challenge?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Here's my biggest issue with Mike Tomlin. They are not as disciplined as they should be. Chase Claypool, perfect example. Mike Tomlin benches him for that stupid penalty on Rashad Breeland in the first quarter for that eye poke and whatever he did. 15 yards. Claypool gets benched. What does he do later in the game in the most crucial moment of the game? Catches a big 4th down catch, and he's celebrating a first down when his team has no timeouts and took away another opportunity at the end zone at the end of the game. Which, by the way,
his own teammates trying to rip the ball out of his hands.
Yeah, what's it called? Eric Kendricks did rip the ball out of his hands, if you notice. Like, Eric Kendricks actually help the Vikings out there. It was awesome. It's, that's a heads-up play. And Chase Claypool, that was just an idiotic move by him, and Claypool admitted it, but Tomlin said, we'll see. And, the way Tomlin and Claypool have been going back and forth over the last couple of weeks doesn't sound like
well, and then there was a moment in the game last night where Roethlisberger coming off the field looked like he got into a little bit of a, I don't want to say argument, but he said something to Tomlin, the shelf life of these coaches, he has far exceeded what most coaches do. You just wonder if Tomlin says, you know what? It's time for me to forge a new identity somewhere else. I don't know. I mean, some guys.
I'm cut from a different cloth. Some people go, boy, you must suck playing for Mike Tomlin. I would love to play for a guy like Mike Tomlin. Honestly, it seems very easy to get on Mike Tomlin's good. Just listen to the guy. Yeah. I mean, I know these guys have been doing it for years and years. Ben Roethlisberger's been doing it pretty much his whole career. But I mean, look, I feel like the best chance to win is with a guy like Mike Tomlin. And you're right. I mean, do you imagine how many teams would be knocking on Mike Tomlin's door if the Steelers ever get rid? The Minnesota Vikings would take it back in a second.
Well, last night, too, if the Vikings would have lost that game, I don't know that Mike Zimmer coaches the game next week.
Yeah, exactly. They might have just kind of cut bait. It's not even just the way they lost. It's more of, I think if they would have just lost that game a normal way, they would have been like, all right, yeah, this guy's lost the team. They would have been 5-8. They would have been out of the playoff race. No reason to continue forward with this. But, yeah, they lost the game the way they lost. There's no reason that game should have been 36-28 at all with the way the Vikings were playing.
All right, Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports. Obviously, the Eagles on the bye this week. You are covering the 49ers and Bengals game for CBS Sports. You can follow him at Jeff Kerr, CBS. That's a big one for Eagles fans. Of course, Washington and Dallas, a huge game in the NFC East. Hey, look, if Washington wins that game, I talked about this on Tuesday's show, Jeff. If Washington sweeps Dallas and Dallas loses to Arizona, that would be 3 losses for them. They play the Giants. I'll give them the Giants game. But if they lost 3 games, 2 to Washington, 1 to Arizona, and Philly was 3-0, the week 18 game would be for the division.
How crazy is that?
Is that a far-fetched scenario?
It's not far-fetched, but I think the Eagles should, honestly, I just want to see them go to the playoffs. And the best way for that is probably for Dallas to beat Washington. But, man, there are so many crazy things in play. It shouldn't matter what the result is Sunday, but
how about this? If Washington wins Sunday, Jeff, are you then rooting for them to beat Dallas again in 2 weeks?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you have to. Because, well, here's the thing. The Eagles got to beat Washington anyway.
Yes.
But then that just tells me you got to sweep Washington, and then you got to hope in between there Washington beats Dallas again. Then all of a sudden things get very
things will get really like. Let's think about this conversation today. Here on Friday night, the 10th, and think about where we'll be on the 31st on New Year's Eve, what this NFC playoff race might look like. Just think about this conversation out there, people listening. And then when we do this again in a couple of weeks, we'll see what ends up happening. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports. Follow him on Twitter at Jeff Kerr CBS. And of course, you go to CBSSports.com for his latest NFL coverage here on the Sports Bash, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays with Jeff. Jeff, thanks, man.
Mike Gill, famous prognosticator. We were talking playoffs in mid-October, and here we are in December. They thought we were crazy.
Hey, Jeff Kerr's appearance on the Sports Bash is brought to you by the expert solar team of New Jersey, EMT Solar and Roofing and Solar Guardian. Start your solar journey today. Learn more, visit ESPNsolar.com. They always think we're crazy, Jeff. Good seeing you, bud.
Thanks for having me on, Mike.
All right, we will wrap up the show coming up on the other side. Don't go away. Don't forget game night. Josh has that tonight at 6 o'clock, and that will lead you into the Flyers in Vegas. Actually, not lead you in. Flyers at 7 o'clock. Or the Flyers are, home against Vegas tonight. They've lost 10 straight trying to snap that losing streak. You'll hear it tonight here on 97.3 ESPN.
Football is here. Get in on the action and download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now or visit DraftKings Sportsbook at Resorts Casino Hotel for the ultimate sports betting experience with massive TVs and game day drink specials. For a limited time, DraftKings Online Sportsbook is offering new customers $200 in free bets instantly once they bet $1 on any football game. Get in on the action with promo code RESORTS or visit DraftKings Sportsbook at Resorts Casino Hotel. Must be 21 or older, New Jersey only, new mobile customers only, minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required, one per customer, restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? So it's about that time for an oil change? We've got what you need. Right now, you can get 5 quarts of Castrol Edge Full Synthetic or Full Synthetic High Mileage and an STP Extended Life Oil Filter for just $31.99. And you can get it all fast, your way. Just order online with our free same-day store pickup or next-day delivery.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Start your job today at AutoZone.com. Restrictions apply.
All right, wrapping up a Friday show. Happy Hour Friday. Hopefully you enjoyed your Friday because no Eagles this weekend. It's kind of sad when your team doesn't play, but you get that weekend off to yourself. You can kind of don't have to be glued to the TV for the entire thing. If you got one game you're watching this weekend, it's got to be Dallas, Washington, right? Although the Bengals 49er game is a big one. It's a rematch of like Super Bowl, I don't know what number, but it was like 1984, maybe 89 too. I think they played again. Didn't they play twice? Not, it wasn't 84. That was Washington and Miami, or was that Miami and Washington in 84? I remember because San Francisco played Cincinnati. It was like one of the first Super Bowls that I kind of remember, like that I was old enough to kind of like be, cognizant of what was going on. The first Super Bowl that I actually remember was the 85 Bears, 86 Giants, 87 Washington. It had to be 88. I would imagine 88 was Niners and Bengals, right? And then 89, I think it was Washington again. And Washington won like 3 there because they had like 3 different quarterbacks. They had Rippon, they had Doug Williams, and Theismann was a little earlier. So what was that, 84? Yeah, see, 84, I wasn't quite old enough to remember. So, I mean, I kind of remember it had to be Marino in that one. So I would say 88 was Niners and Bengals. 82 was what? Washington. Was what? Yeah, 82 was Washington's first Super Bowl. 83, who won in that year? Yeah, that one was Theismann. Yeah. After well, see, the years don't match the season. That's one of the problems with football. Everybody gets all confused sometimes. I'm going, so 85 was the 85 Bears, but that Super Bowl happened in 86. 84 was the 85, happened in 85. The 84 season was San Fran played Miami, right? And then the first Super Bowl that I remember, like, was old enough to, like, remember was Bears-Patriots. That was in 85. The 85 Bears, 86. The Giants were in 86. Washington was 87. Yeah, it was Niners-Bengals, 88, right. Then the Niners won again against Denver in 89. Giants won in 90 against Buffalo. And then Washington won again in 91 against Buffalo. And then you had the Dallas back-to-backers. This was when the NFC had a run. I mean, my entire childhood was the NFC just absolutely kicking ass. The first team that won that wasn't an NFC team when I was growing up was that Denver team. They won the back-to-backs with Elway in 97 and 98. Then the greatest show on turf beat Tennessee. And then you had Baltimore and New England. And then it kind of started the New England thing. After that, you had Tampa Bay for a year. That was the Gruden team. Then you had a back-to-back New England, Pittsburgh Colts, Giants, Pittsburgh. And then it's just a mismatch. Saints, Packers, Giants, Ravens, Seahawks, Patriots, Denver. So we had a different Super Bowl winner. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 straight seasons there. There was a run of 10 straight years where there was a different Super Bowl winner. So that 49er Bengals game this weekend. Oh, real quick, while we're getting ready to wrap up the show. So the news that just came up on Ben Simmons. So Simmons, apparently there's some movement on the Simmons front. According to Woj and Zach Lowe, so you got 2 people reporting this. Philadelphia's trade conversations on Simmons gathering momentum. More teams are now engaged. This is very predictable for me anyway, because I said this all along. There are teams that are looking at their roster and saying, man, we're not nearly as good as we thought we were. We're not where we want to be. How do we fix this? Well, we try to get Ben Simmons. So this is why Morey had to hold on and wait this out. And I think teams like Indiana is saying, we got to blow this thing up. Who else would be in that mix?
Minnesota. I was telling you about that the other day on game night. They have a new
Sacramento,
ownership.
Right. Minnesota, Sacramento. Um,
Hey, desperate teams do desperate
Portland,
things.
Portland's one of those teams. Now, in the report from Woj, Portland is steadfast that they are not trading Dame Lillard.
And Lillard was on SVP Sports Center the other night. He said outright, I am not leaving. I do not want to leave. I do not want to be traded.
Good for him, by the way.
He's putting his foot down.
I mean, good for him, though, in this everybody chasing rings, chasing. He's the guy that's saying, I'm good enough. Come play with me.
Honestly, I think Lillard looked at Giannis, what he did with the Bucks last year, and said that could be me.
I have no problem with that. Now, in the end, he might not win Squadaddle, but
Sure.
guess what? He stuck to his guns. San Antonio, all those teams, Oklahoma City, Houston. Oklahoma City's got a boatload of picks.
And they could maybe swipe up somebody's rando.
The problem is Philadelphia doesn't want picks, but they could be part of a 3-team with a team that does want picks.
You know who does? Sacramento, Portland. Listen, guys like Nurkic could be traded easily.
So the Ben Simmons stuff seems to be heating up. What do you got coming up on game night?
Well, we are going to react more to the Ben Simmons stuff because this is just bonkers. It just Friday news dump smacked me in the face like a Muhammad Ali jab.
Real quick, UFC tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow night.
Big card.
Amanda Nunes versus Juliana Pena. That's two people who hate each other. And then Poirier versus Oliveira for the UFC lightweight championship.
Yep. Jeff Nadeau fights tonight.
I think he wins.
You do?
I do.
Do you know anything about the opponent?
Don't care.
I mean, I don't either. I'm just saying.
I just think Nadeau's better conditioning. It matters.
Wow. Sight unseen. Okay. Well,
conditioning matters in these fights.
That's tonight. We'll be back on Monday. Josh has game night tonight. I'm back on Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody.